the untouchable. Elena Cruz thought she could disappear before anyone discovered her secret, the consequence of one reckless night with Adrian Voss, the ruthless CEO, whose empire walked the line between legitimate business and something far darker. She had her resignation letter ready, her escape plan down to the minute. But Adrian Voss didn't build an empire by letting valuable things slip away. The moment he learned the truth, everything changed. What she thought was freedom became captivity. What she believed was protection felt like control. And what started as a mistake might become the most dangerous relationship of her life. If you're ready for a story of power, secrets, and impossible choices, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city below. I want to see how far this story travels. The resignation letter sat in Elena Cruz's desk drawer like a ticking bomb. She'd rewritten it 17 times over the past 3 days, each version attempting to strike the impossible balance between professional courtesy and absolute necessity. How did you tell one of the most powerful men in the city that you were leaving without explanation? How did you walk away from Adrian Voss without him demanding to know why? The answer was simple: you didn't. Elena's fingers trembled as she pulled the envelope from the drawer one more time, staring at her carefully crafted lies. Pursuing new opportunities. Grateful for the experience. 2 weeks' notice. All of it bullshit. All of it necessary. Because the truth, the real truth, would destroy everything. She pressed her hand against her stomach, still flat beneath the tailored navy dress that had become her uniform. 12 weeks. The doctor had confirmed it yesterday, though Elena had known for nearly a month. Known and denied and bargained with a universe that clearly wasn't listening. Ms. Cruz. The intercom on her desk crackled to life with Adrian's voice, cool and commanding even through the speaker. My office, now. Elena's heart stuttered. She'd been his executive secretary for 3 years, and she knew every inflection of that voice. This wasn't a request. This wasn't even a command. This was something else entirely. She slipped the resignation letter into her blazer pocket and stood, smoothing her dress with shaking hands. The floor-to-ceiling windows of the executive suite stretched across the 42nd floor of Mercer Holdings' headquarters, offering a view of the city that had once made her feel powerful. Now it just made her feel trapped. The distance between her desk and Adrian's office was exactly 43 steps. She'd counted them 1,000 times during her employment here, usually while preparing herself to face whatever crisis required her attention. But she'd never counted them like this, like a condemned woman walking toward her execution. His door was already open. Adrian Voss stood behind his desk, his back to her as he gazed out at the cityscape. Even in silhouette, he commanded attention. 6'3", broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made rooms go quiet when he entered. His dark suit was custom-tailored, perfectly fitted to a frame that spent more time in the private gym than anyone in the building realized. His black hair, shot through with silver at the temples despite being only 38, was combed back with the same precision that characterized everything about him. He'd been handsome the night they'd crossed every line. He was still handsome now. That was part of the problem. Close the door. Elena's stomach dropped. In 3 years, he'd never asked her to close the door. Their relationship was impeccably professional, conducted entirely in the open space of the executive suite where anyone could see, where there could be no suggestion of impropriety. Except, of course, for that one night 2.5 months ago, when everything had gone spectacularly, irreversibly wrong. She closed the door. The click of the latch sounded like a cell door locking. Sit down, Elena. He still hadn't turned around. She couldn't decide if that made this easier or harder. I prefer to stand, Mr. Voss. Now he turned, and the full force of those ice-blue eyes hit her like a physical blow. Adrian Voss had built an empire through a combination of brilliant business acumen and absolutely ruthless determination. Those eyes had stared down hostile board members, rival CEOs, and, according to the whispered rumors that swirled around him like smoke, men who operated in far darker worlds than corporate America. They were staring at her now with an intensity that made her knees weak. We both know you're not going to like what I'm about to say, Adrian said, his voice quiet but edged with steel. So I'd prefer you sitting down when I say it. Mr. Voss, I don't think you're pregnant. The words hung in the air between them like a grenade with the pin pulled. Elena's carefully constructed composure cracked. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't! The single word cracked like a whip. Adrian moved around the desk with the predatory grace that had always made her heart race for all the wrong reasons. Or maybe all the right ones. She'd never been sure. Don't insult both of us by lying. I've known you for 3 years, Elena. I know when you're hiding something. You're mistaken. Her voice was steady despite the panic clawing up her throat. I came in here to discuss the resignation letter in your pocket. He was close now. Too close. Invading the careful space she'd maintained between them since that night. Did you think I wouldn't notice? You've been distracted for weeks. Pale. Avoiding coffee. Leaving early for appointments you won't explain. Heat flooded her cheeks. She'd been so careful. So impossibly careful. I hired an investigator, Adrian continued, and Elena's world tilted sideways. Not to spy on you. To protect you. There have been threats against my executives. Standard security protocol. His jaw tightened. Imagine my surprise when the report included a visit to an obstetrician. The resignation letter felt like it was burning through her pocket. You had no right. I have every right. His voice dropped, became something dangerous and possessive that sent shivers down her spine. Especially when it's my child. Elena's breath caught. There it was. The truth, spoken aloud in Adrian Voss's office, where the walls were soundproofed and the world couldn't hear. It's not... She couldn't even finish the lie. March 7th, Adrian said quietly. The Nakamura merger celebration. You stayed late to help me prepare for the Tokyo presentation. We were alone in the office. We'd both had too much champagne, and we made a choice that apparently has consequences. Elena closed her eyes against the memory. It had been late, nearly midnight. The merger had been Adrian's pet project for 18 months, and its success had been a triumph that even his enemies had to acknowledge. The champagne had flowed freely at the celebration, and she'd stayed behind like she always did, making sure everything was perfect for his morning flight. Except Adrian had been exhilarated, almost boyish in his victory, so unlike his usual controlled self. And she'd been tired of being invisible, tired of being professional, tired of pretending she didn't feel the electric charge between them every single day. One glass had led to another. One conversation had led to confessions neither of them should have made. One touch had led to a kiss that had led to Adrian clearing his desk with a sweep of his arm, and it was a mistake, Elena whispered, forcing her eyes open. We agreed it was a mistake. Well, we agreed it wouldn't happen again, Adrian corrected, his voice rough. We didn't agree to pretend it never happened, and we certainly didn't agree that you would run away carrying my child without telling me. I wasn't running away. The lie tasted bitter. I was leaving. There's a difference. Not to me. He reached out, and she flinched. Adrian froze, something that might have been hurt flashing across his face before the mask of control slammed back into place. I'm not going to hurt you, Elena. You're not going to let me leave either. No, he agreed simply. I'm not. The resignation letter crumpled in her fist. You can't force me to stay. I'm not forcing anything. Adrian stepped back, putting space between them again, though his eyes never left her face. I'm asking. You're pregnant with my child. That changes everything. It changes nothing. Elena's voice was sharper than she intended. We had one night, one mistake. That doesn't give you ownership over my life. Ownership? Adrian's expression darkened. Is that what you think this is about? What else would it be about? She laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the elegant office. You're Adrian Voss. You don't let things slip out of your control. And now I'm carrying something that threatens that control, so naturally you want to manage it. Contain it. Make sure it doesn't damage your reputation or your empire. For a long moment, Adrian just stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a cold, dangerous expression that reminded her exactly why people feared him. You think very little of me. I think realistically of you. Elena lifted her chin, refusing to back down despite the fear skittering through her veins. I've worked for you for 3 years, Mr. Voss. I know exactly who you are. Do you? He moved to his desk, pressed a button. Margaret, clear my schedule for the rest of the day. All meetings. No exceptions. Elena's eyes widened. What are you doing? We're going to have a conversation, Adrian said calmly. A real one. Without the titles and the professional distance and the lies we've been telling ourselves for 3 years. I don't want... Sit down. The command in his voice was absolute. Please. The please was what did it. Elena had heard Adrian Voss issue thousands of orders, but she'd rarely heard him say please. She sank into one of the leather chairs facing his desk, her heart hammering. Adrian sat across from her, not behind the desk but in the matching chair, turning it so they faced each other with nothing between them but air and truth. I know what people say about me, he began, his voice quiet but firm. I know the rumors, the whispers, that I have connections to organizations that operate outside the law, that Mercer Holdings is just a front for something darker. Elena said nothing. She'd heard those rumors too. Hell, she'd seen enough irregular meetings, enough late-night phone calls in languages she didn't speak, enough cash transactions that never appeared in official books to know there was truth beneath the smoke. Some of those rumors are true, Adrian continued, and Elena's breath caught at the admission. My father built this company on the backs of deals that would never survive legal scrutiny. When he died and left it to me, I inherited more than a business. I inherited obligations, alliances, debts that can't be paid in money. Why are you telling me this? Because you're carrying my child. Adrian leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, bringing them closer together. Because that child, our child, will be born into a world that's more dangerous than you realize. Because if you walk away now, you'll have a target on your back that you can't possibly protect yourself from. Cold fear slithered down Elena's spine. What are you saying? I'm saying that the moment my enemies find out you're pregnant, they'll use it against me. Against us. His eyes were intense, burning into hers. I'm saying that you staying here under my protection is the only thing keeping you safe. That's insane. Elena stood abruptly, her chair scraping back. You're trying to scare me into... I'm trying to keep you alive. Adrian rose too, his voice sharp. Do you know what happened to the last woman I was publicly connected to? Elena froze. She'd heard whispers, 5 years ago, before she'd joined the company. A woman named Isabella, a relationship that had ended abruptly and violently. She left me, Adrian said, his voice hollow. Decided she couldn't handle my world. 3 weeks later, she was dead. Car accident, according to the police report. Brake failure. His hands clenched into fists. I knew better, but I couldn't prove it. Couldn't bring her back. All I could do was make sure the men responsible paid. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. You're telling me, Elena said slowly, that if I leave, someone will kill me. I'm telling you that if my enemies discover you're vulnerable, they'll exploit it. Adrian's jaw was tight. I'm telling you that you're not just Elena Cruz anymore. You're the mother of Adrian Voss's child, and that makes you a target. Elena sank back into the chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her. This can't be happening. It is happening. Adrian knelt in front of her, his large hands covering hers before she could pull away. I know this isn't what you wanted. I know this isn't the life you chose, but we're here now, and I need you to trust me. She laughed, a broken sound. Trust you? You just admitted you're involved in criminal organizations. You just told me people are going to try to kill me. Why the hell would I trust you? Because I will protect you. The intensity in his voice was almost frightening. Because that child you're carrying is mine, and I protect what's mine. Because despite everything you think you know about me, I have never lied to you, and I'm not lying now. Elena looked down at their joined hands, his so much larger than hers, scarred across the knuckles in ways that told stories she'd never asked about. 3 years she'd worked beside this man. 3 years of professional perfection, of careful distance, of pretending the electricity between them didn't exist. One night had shattered all of that. And now she was carrying the consequences. What do you want from me? She whispered. Stay, Adrian said simply. Stay here, where I can protect you. Let me provide for you, for our child. Let me... He paused, seemed to struggle with the words. Let me be part of this. And if I refuse? His expression hardened. Then I'll have you moved to a secure location whether you like it or not. I won't risk your life, Elena, or our child's, even if you hate me for it. There it was. The truth beneath the request. This wasn't a choice. This was an ultimatum wrapped in concern. Elena pulled her hands from his and stood, needing distance. You can't keep me prisoner. I can keep you safe. Adrian rose, his height once again towering over her. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. They stared at each other across the space of the office. Two people who'd carefully maintained professional distance for 3 years now forced into an intimacy neither was prepared for. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Voss, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation. Adrian's expression never changed, but Elena saw the tension that rippled through his shoulders. What kind of situation? Dmitry Volkov is here. He says it's urgent. Elena watched the blood drain from Adrian's face. She'd never seen him react to a name with fear before. It was terrifying. Tell him I'll be right down. Adrian turned to Elena. Don't leave this office. Who's Dmitry Volkov? Someone you don't want to meet. Adrian strode to his desk, pulled open a drawer, and removed something that made Elena's stomach drop. A gun. He checked it with practiced efficiency, then slipped it into a shoulder holster hidden beneath his jacket. Stay here. Lock the door after I leave. Don't open it for anyone but me. Adrian, promise me. He was at the door, his hand on the knob, those blue eyes boring into hers with an intensity that stole her breath. Promise me you'll stay here. I promise. The words were out before she could stop them. He nodded once, then was gone. Elena locked the door with shaking hands, then sank into his desk chair, her mind reeling. Less than an hour ago, she'd been planning her escape. Now she was locked in Adrian Voss's office while he went to meet someone dangerous enough to make him carry a gun. She pressed her hand to her stomach again, to the tiny life growing inside her that had upended everything. What have I gotten us into? She whispered to the silence. The office didn't answer, but through the soundproofed walls she could have sworn she heard shouting. 20 minutes passed like 20 hours. Elena paced the office, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor with metronomic precision. She counted the steps, counted the windows, counted the beats of her racing heart, anything to avoid thinking about what was happening somewhere below her. Adrian had taken a gun to a meeting. What kind of business discussion required a weapon? The kind you don't walk away from, a dark voice whispered in her mind. She found herself standing at his desk, staring at the perfectly organized surface. Everything about Adrian Voss was controlled, measured, calculated. Even his office reflected it. Expensive but not ostentatious, powerful but not showy. The desk held only a laptop, a slim folder, and a photo frame turned toward his chair. Elena had never looked at that photo. In 3 years, she'd respected his privacy, never ventured into the personal space behind the professional facade. Now, with fear churning in her gut, and her entire future hanging in the balance, she reached for it. The photo showed a younger Adrian, maybe 25, without the silver in his hair or the hard edges around his eyes. He had his arm around a woman who looked like him, same dark hair, same sharp features. She was laughing at something off camera, and Adrian was smiling at her with unguarded affection. On the back, in faded ink, Adrian and Sophia, 2013. Elena's throat tightened. She'd never heard Adrian mention a Sophia, never seen any evidence of family in his carefully curated life. The door handle rattled, and Elena nearly dropped the frame. She shoved it back onto the desk, her heart in her throat. Elena, it's me. Open the door. Adrian's voice was rougher than usual, strained. She rushed to unlock it. He looked like he'd been in a fight. His jacket was missing, his shirt partially unbuttoned, and there was a cut on his cheekbone that was bleeding sluggishly. But it was his eyes that made Elena's breath catch, dark with a violence she'd never seen in them before. What happened? She reached for him instinctively, her fingers going to the cut. Adrian caught her wrist, not roughly, but firmly. Don't. You're hurt. I'm fine. He released her and moved past, going to a cabinet hidden in the wall paneling. Inside was a first aid kit and a bottle of expensive scotch. He grabbed both. We need to talk. No kidding. Elena watched him pour 2 fingers of scotch, down it in one swallow, then pour another. Adrian, what? Dmitry Volkov knows you're pregnant. The words hit like a slap. How? Because I have a traitor in my organization. Adrian's voice was cold, controlled fury barely leashed. Someone's been feeding information to the Volkov family. They know about you, they know about the baby, and they're planning to use it. Elena sank into a chair, her legs giving out. Use it how? Adrian finally looked at her, and the raw, protective anger in his eyes made her shiver. They want leverage, control over my territory. They've offered me a deal. Give them access to my shipping routes, my contacts, my infrastructure, or they'll make sure you and the baby disappear. The room spun. They threatened to kill us. They threatened to take you. Adrian's hands clenched on the glass. Which is worse. Elena didn't want to think about what that meant. So what did you tell them? I told them to go to hell. He set the glass down with controlled precision. And then I made it very clear what would happen to anyone who touched you. The cut on your face. Dmitri wasn't happy with my answer. A ghost of a smile crossed Adrian's lips, cold and dangerous. But he's still breathing, which is more than I can say for the last man who threatened what's mine. Elena should have been terrified, should have been running for the door. Instead, she found herself asking, what happens now? Now we go public. Adrian pulled out his phone. I'm calling a press conference for tomorrow morning. We're going to announce the pregnancy, announce our relationship, and make it clear that you're under my protection. Our relationship? Elena's voice pitched higher. We don't have a relationship. We have a one-night stand and a complication. We have a child on the way. Adrian's voice was flat, brooking no argument. That's relationship enough. And once the world knows, the Volkovs can't touch you without starting a war. You're using me as a shield. I'm using the truth as a shield. He moved closer, and Elena forced herself not to back away. Elena, I know this isn't what you wanted. I know you plan to leave, to raise this child alone, to pretend that night never happened. But that option is gone now. The only way to keep you safe is to make you too visible to harm. She wanted to argue, wanted to scream into the unfairness of it all. But the cold logic of his words was undeniable. I hate this, she whispered. I know. For just a moment, Adrian's control slipped, and she saw something raw and almost vulnerable in his eyes. I know this isn't the life you chose, but it's the life we have now, and I swear to you, I will keep you safe, both of you. Elena looked down at her hands, at the resignation letter she'd forgotten was still crumpled in her pocket. All her plans, all her carefully constructed escape routes, rendered meaningless in the span of an hour. I need guarantees, she said finally, looking up at him. If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to let you turn my life upside down and parade me in front of the media, I need something from you. Adrian's expression sharpened. Name it. First, my own space. I'm not moving into some safe house where you can monitor my every move. I need my apartment, my life, my independence. Done. With security. Second, my career. I worked damn hard to get where I am. I'm not going to be reduced to Adrian Voss's pregnant girlfriend in the press. I want a real position with real responsibilities. You'll be promoted to VP of Strategic Operations. Adrian's response was immediate. You've earned it. The pregnancy has nothing to do with your qualifications. Elena blinked, surprised. VP? You're the most competent person in this building, Elena. The only reason you weren't promoted before is because I was too selfish to risk losing the best assistant I've ever had. A wry smile crossed his face. That particular concern is no longer relevant. Despite everything, Elena felt a flicker of warmth. Third, and this is non-negotiable, you tell me the truth. No more secrets. No more protecting me from the dangerous parts of your world. If I'm in this, I'm in it fully. I deserve to know what I'm up against. Adrian studied her for a long moment, something like respect dawning in his eyes. You're tougher than I gave you credit for. You have no idea what I'm capable of, Mr. Voss. Adrian, he corrected softly. If we're going to sell this relationship to the world, you should probably stop calling me Mr. Voss. Elena's breath caught. The intimacy of his name on her lips felt dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with Russian mobsters, and everything to do with the man standing before her. Adrian, she said, testing it. The word felt like crossing a line she couldn't uncross. What's going to happen at this press conference? I'm going to tell the truth. He moved to the window, looking out at the city lights beginning to glow in the dusk. That you and I have been in a relationship for the past 3 months. That you're pregnant. That we're committed to raising this child together. And that anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me personally. That's not the truth. We're not in a relationship. We will be after tomorrow. Adrian turned back to her, and the certainty in his voice was absolute. Because the alternative is you being vulnerable, and I won't allow that. You can't just decide, I can and I have. He crossed back to her, and this time when he reached for her hand, she didn't pull away. I know you don't trust me. I know you think this is about control. But I need you to understand something, Elena. That child you're carrying, it's the only good thing I've created in a very long time. And I will burn this entire city down before I let anyone harm it. Or you. The intensity of his words should have terrified her. Instead, Elena felt something shift inside her chest, some wall she'd carefully built beginning to crack. I'm scared, she admitted, the words barely a whisper. Good. Adrian's thumb stroked across her knuckles, a gesture so gentle it seemed at odds with everything else about him. Fear will keep you alert. But know this, you're not alone in this anymore. Whatever happens, we face it together. Elena looked up at him, at this man who was equal parts protector and threat, salvation and cage. What if I can't do this? What if I can't be what you need me to be? You already are. His free hand came up to cup her cheek, and Elena's breath stuttered at the unexpected tenderness. You're strong enough to try to leave me, brave enough to carry a child you didn't plan for, smart enough to negotiate terms when most people would just accept my protection. You're exactly what I need you to be, Elena. You just don't know it yet. She should pull away, should maintain the distance that had kept them safe for 3 years. But the warmth of his hand on her face, the absolute certainty in his voice, the way he looked at her like she was something precious and breakable, it all combined to keep her frozen in place. The press conference is at 9 a.m., Adrian said softly. My PR team will prep you tonight. They'll ask questions about how we met, how long we've been together, whether marriage is in the future. Is it? The question escaped before Elena could stop it. Marriage? Adrian's expression became unreadable. Do you want it to be? I don't know what I want anymore. Elena pulled back, needing the distance to think clearly. 24 hours ago, I wanted to disappear. Now I'm going to be standing in front of cameras claiming to be in love with you. You don't have to claim love. Adrian's voice was carefully neutral. Respect is enough. Partnership. We can build on that. Can we? Elena laughed bitterly. How do you build a relationship on a foundation of threats and ultimatums? The same way you build anything worthwhile. Adrian moved back to the scotch, poured another glass. One choice at a time. One day at a time. One moment of trust at a time. I don't trust you. Then trust this. He raised the glass in a mock toast. I will keep you safe. I will provide for our child. And I will never ever lie to you about the dangers we face. That's more than most relationships start with. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the ways this was wrong, impossible, doomed to failure. But the exhaustion was catching up to her, the weight of the day's revelations pressing down until she could barely breathe. I need to go home, she said quietly. I need to think. You'll have security. Adrian was already pulling out his phone. 2 men, rotating shifts. They'll be discreet. Of course they will. Elena moved to the door, then paused. Adrian? The woman in the photo on your desk. Sophia. Who is she? His expression shuddered completely. Someone I failed to protect. Someone whose death I carry every day. He met her eyes. She's why I won't fail you. Elena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She left the office, left the building, left Adrian Voss standing in the gathering darkness of his empire. But she couldn't leave behind the truth that had just upended her entire world. She was going to have Adrian Voss's child. And tomorrow she was going to tell the world she belonged to him. The only question was whether she'd survive what came after. The security detail arrived at Elena's apartment building at 7 p.m., exactly when Adrian had promised. 2 men in dark suits, one positioned in the lobby, one outside her door. Professional, discreet, terrifying. Elena sat on her couch, staring at the untouched takeout container on her coffee table, and tried to process the fact that her life now required armed guards. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. PR team will arrive at 8. They'll need 2 hours. Get some rest before then. She should have been annoyed at his presumption, at the way he'd simply taken over her evening. Instead, she felt a strange flutter of something that might have been gratitude. At least someone was handling the logistics while her brain struggled to catch up with reality. Another message appeared. And Elena? Thank you. For staying. For trusting me enough to try. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. What was she supposed to say to that? You're welcome for not running away from the father of my child. Thanks for threatening me into compliance. In the end, she typed nothing. Just set the phone down and pressed her hands against her flat stomach, wondering when she'd feel something. Movement, life. Proof that this wasn't all some elaborate nightmare. The knock came at exactly 8 o'clock. Elena opened the door to find a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expensive briefcase, flanked by a younger man carrying what looked like a portable wardrobe. Ms. Cruz, I'm Veronica Kane, head of crisis communications for Mercer Holdings. The woman's handshake was firm, professional. This is Marcus, our image consultant. May we come in? Crisis communications. The term made Elena's stomach twist. Of course. She stepped back, letting them enter her modest apartment. It suddenly felt painfully small compared to the spaces Adrian inhabited. Veronica settled onto the couch with the efficiency of someone used to handling disasters. First, let me say congratulations on the baby. Second, let me say that what we're about to do tomorrow will change your life forever. Are you prepared for that? No, Elena said honestly, but I don't think I have a choice. There's always a choice. Veronica's expression softened fractionally. But some choices have consequences we can't afford. Adrian explained the situation with the Volkov family. He mentioned they want to kidnap me and use me for leverage. That's the sanitized version. Veronica pulled out a tablet, tapped it a few times, then turned it toward Elena. This is what happened to the last person who became leverage against Adrian Voss. The photos were brutal. Elena turned away after the first one, her hand covering her mouth. I'm sorry to show you that, Veronica said quietly, but you need to understand what we're protecting you from. The Volkovs don't make idle threats. If they get their hands on you, the best-case scenario is that Adrian gives them what they want and they return you alive. The worst case? She trailed off meaningfully. Elena forced herself to breathe through the nausea. What's the plan for tomorrow? We present you as Adrian's partner, strong, confident, choosing this relationship. The media will ask invasive questions. When did you meet? How long have you been together? Whether this baby was planned. We need your answers to be consistent with Adrian's. Marcus spoke for the first time, his voice surprisingly gentle. We also need to address your appearance. Right now you look like an executive secretary. Tomorrow you need to look like the woman who could capture Adrian Voss's heart. Elena bristled. What's wrong with how I look? Nothing, professionally. Marcus was already opening his cases, pulling out clothing. But the media expects a certain narrative. Powerful man, beautiful woman, unexpected romance. We're going to give them that narrative while maintaining your dignity and strength. The next 2 hours were a blur of wardrobe changes, makeup trials, and practiced responses to hypothetical questions. Veronica drilled her relentlessly. How did you and Adrian fall in love? We worked together for 3 years. The professional respect grew into something more personal. When did the relationship turn romantic? 3 months ago, after the Nakamura merger. At least that part was true. Was the pregnancy planned? It was unexpected but welcomed. The lie tasted bitter, but Veronica nodded approval. Will you be getting married? We're focused on preparing for the baby right now. Marriage is a conversation for later. By 10 o'clock, Elena's head was pounding and her feet ached from standing in the 4-inch heels Marcus insisted she needed. But when she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back wore a cream-colored dress that somehow managed to be both modest and devastating, fitted enough to show her figure but loose enough to hide the barely there bump. Her dark hair was styled in soft waves instead of her usual severe bun. The makeup was subtle but transformative, emphasizing her eyes and making her look polished, powerful, untouchable. Perfect, Marcus murmured. You look like you belong at his side. I look like someone pretending to belong at his side, Elena corrected. Veronica stood, gathering her materials. Then pretend convincingly. Your life may depend on it. She paused at the door. Elena? Adrian Voss is many things, some of them frightening, some of them brilliant, most of them complicated. But he protects what's his with a ferocity that's almost legendary. You could do worse than having that protection. After they left, Elena stood in her transformed apartment, clothing racks everywhere, makeup covering her bathroom counter, her quiet life invaded and reorganized, and wondered who she was becoming. Her phone buzzed again. Veronica says you did well. I knew you would. Car will pick you up at 8:30 tomorrow. Try to sleep. Elena typed back before she could think better of it. Are you sleeping? The response came immediately. No, too much to prepare. Too many people to remind that touching you would be the last mistake they ever make. Despite everything, Elena felt her lips curve into a smile. Violent threats aren't romantic, Adrian. They are when they're sincere. Sleep, Elena. Tomorrow we change everything. She did sleep eventually, though her dreams were filled with cameras and questions and ice blue eyes that promised both salvation and destruction. The car that arrived at 8:30 was a black town car with tinted windows and a driver who introduced himself simply as Davis. The same security detail from last night climbed into a second vehicle that followed them through morning traffic. Elena's hands wouldn't stop shaking. They pulled up to Mercer Holdings at 8:55. A crowd had already gathered. Journalists, cameras, curious onlookers drawn by the mysterious press conference announcement that had gone out late last night. Ms. Cruz, Davis appeared at her door. Mr. Voss is waiting inside. Are you ready? No, she would never be ready. But she nodded anyway. The lobby of Mercer Holdings had been transformed into a media staging area. Cameras lined the back wall, reporters filled rows of chairs, and at the front stood a podium with the company logo. And beside it, looking every inch the powerful CEO, in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, stood Adrian Voss. His eyes found hers immediately across the crowded room. Something passed between them. Understanding, solidarity, a silent promise that they were in this together whether they liked it or not. He crossed to her in long strides, and before Elena could process what was happening, his hand was at the small of her back, guiding her forward with possessive certainty. You look beautiful, he murmured, low enough that only she could hear. I look terrified. Then we match. His hand tightened fractionally. Ready? Do I have a choice? Always. His eyes met hers with surprising intensity. You can still walk away. I'll find another way to keep you safe. For a moment, Elena almost believed him, almost thought she could turn around, leave this circus, return to her quiet life. Then she thought of the photos Veronica had shown her, the reality of the Volkov threat, the child growing inside her who deserved better than a mother running scared. Let's do this, she said. Adrian's smile was small but genuine. That's my girl. The possessive phrasing should have annoyed her. Instead, it sent warmth flooding through her chest. They approached the podium together. Cameras flashed like lightning. The murmur of the crowd grew louder. Adrian stepped up to the microphone with the confidence of a man who'd faced down hostile takeovers and emerged victorious. Elena stood beside him, her heart hammering so hard she was certain everyone could hear it. Thank you all for coming on short notice, Adrian began, his voice carrying easily across the room. I've called this press conference to address rumors that have been circulating and to share some personal news. The room went silent. Elena could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on her. For the past 3 years, Elena Cruz has been my executive secretary and one of the most valuable members of my team. Over the past 3 months, our relationship has evolved into something more personal. Adrian turned to her, and the warmth in his eyes was so convincing Elena almost believed it herself. Elena is pregnant with my child, and I couldn't be happier about it. The explosion of camera flashes was blinding. Questions erupted from every direction. Mr. Voss, when is the baby due? Ms. Cruz, how do you respond to suggestions this is a career move? Are you planning to get married? Will Ms. Cruz remain in her position at the company? Adrian raised a hand and the room quieted. I'll take questions one at a time, but first let me be absolutely clear about something. His voice dropped, became edged with steel. Elena Cruz is under my protection. Anyone who attempts to harass her, follow her, or treat her with anything less than complete respect will answer to me personally. And trust me when I say you don't want that. The threat was delivered with such calm certainty that several reporters actually stepped back. Now, Adrian continued, his tone lightening fractionally, Elena has agreed to answer a few questions. Please keep them respectful. A woman in the front row raised her hand. Ms. Cruz, this seems like a very sudden announcement. How long have you been in a relationship with Mr. Voss? Elena stepped to the microphone, channeling every ounce of the strength Veronica had drilled into her. Adrian and I have worked closely together for 3 years. The relationship became romantic approximately 3 months ago. When we discovered I was pregnant, we made the decision to go public, rather than hide something we're both committed to. Was the pregnancy planned? Another reporter, male, with skeptical eyes. It was unexpected, Elena said evenly, but welcomed. Mr. Voss, you've been famously private about your personal life. Why go public now? Adrian's hand found Elena's, his fingers threading through hers with easy intimacy. Because the woman I care about and my unborn child deserve better than being treated like a secret. Because I'm proud of this relationship and this family we're building. And because I want the world to know that they're mine. The possessiveness in his voice sent shivers down Elena's spine. He was playing his role perfectly. The powerful man claiming his woman with absolute conviction. She just wished she could tell where the performance ended and reality began. Ms. Cruz, will you continue working at Mercer Holdings? This was the question Veronica had prepared her for extensively. I've been promoted to Vice President of Strategic Operations, Elena said, lifting her chin. My pregnancy has no bearing on my professional capabilities. I earned this position through 3 years of dedicated work, and I intend to continue contributing to this company's success. Some might suggest the promotion is related to your personal relationship with Mr. Voss. Some people will always find reasons to diminish a woman's achievements. Elena's voice sharpened. I've been managing complex international negotiations, overseeing million-dollar projects, and serving as the operational backbone of this company for years. The only thing that's changed is that Adrian finally recognized what I've been contributing all along. Adrian's hand tightened on hers, and when she glanced at him, she saw something like pride in his eyes. The questions continued for another 20 minutes. Most were variations on the same themes: timeline, plans for the future, how they'd keep their relationship professional at work. Elena answered with the smooth confidence Veronica had trained into her, while Adrian stood beside her like an immovable force. Finally, Veronica stepped forward. That's all the time we have today. Thank you for coming. As they turned to leave, a voice rang out from the back. Mr. Voss, is it true you have connections to the Volkov crime family? Elena felt Adrian go rigid beside her. I have business connections throughout this city, he said carefully. Some of them are complicated, but my personal life is exactly that, personal, and off limits. What about reports that Elena Cruz is being used as leverage in a territorial dispute? Adrian's expression went cold in a way that made Elena's blood freeze. The only people who would use a pregnant woman as leverage are cowards who know they can't compete with me legitimately. And those cowards should understand something very clearly. Touching Elena would be the last mistake they ever make. Now, if you'll excuse us, my partner needs rest. He guided Elena away from the podium with a hand that trembled slightly with controlled rage. They made it to the elevator before she finally spoke. That last question was planted by the Volkovs to test me. Adrian stabbed the button for his office floor. They wanted to see how I'd respond to public pressure. And you just threatened them on live television. I made a promise on live television. The elevator doors closed, sealing them in privacy. There's a difference. Elena leaned against the wall, the adrenaline draining away and leaving her shaky. This is insane, all of it. The press conference, the threats, this whole situation. I know. Adrian moved closer, and despite the spacious elevator, she felt surrounded by him. But you did beautifully, strong, confident, everything I knew you could be. I was terrified. So was I. The admission surprised her. But we survived, together. The elevator dinged, doors opening to the executive floor. But before Elena could step out, Adrian caught her arm. I need you to know something, he said quietly. That promotion to VP, it wasn't because of the baby or our relationship. I've been planning it for months. You've earned it a dozen times over. I just didn't want to lose you as my assistant because I'm a selfish bastard who values competence. Elena searched his face, looking for the lie, found only sincerity. You mean that? Every word. His hand slid down her arm, gentle. You're brilliant, Elena. Don't let anyone, including me, make you doubt that. Before she could respond, Veronica appeared from Adrian's office. The press conference is already trending. Mostly positive coverage, though there are some conspiracy theories about the timing. There always are. Adrian released Elena, the professional mask sliding back into place. What's the security situation? 2 attempts to follow Ms. Cruz's car. Both were intercepted by our team. Veronica's expression was grim. The Volkovs are moving faster than we anticipated. Elena's heart skipped. Intercepted how? Our people made it clear that following you was a health hazard. Adrian's voice was flat. They won't try again. You had people hurt because they followed a car. I had people discouraged from stalking the mother of my child. Adrian met her eyes steadily. And I'll do worse if necessary. You need to understand that, Elena. I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Whatever it takes. The absolute certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, she felt a complicated knot of emotions. Fear, yes, but also something warmer, something that felt dangerously like security. I need to get to work, she said, needing space to process. I assume my new office is ready? Top floor, corner view, full security system. Adrian gestured toward the elevator. Davis will show you up. And Elena, you have a meeting with the strategic operations team at 11. I'd suggest reviewing the files I sent to your email this morning. You sent me files this morning? When? Around 4 a.m., couldn't sleep. A wry smile crossed his face. Figured I might as well make sure you were properly briefed for your first day as VP. Elena found herself smiling despite everything. You're ridiculous. I'm thorough. He stepped back, creating professional distance. Go. Conquer your new position. Show everyone what I've always known, that you're the best damn executive in this building. She left before she could do something stupid, like thank him for the compliment. Or worse, admit that part of her liked this. The partnership, the respect, the way he looked at her like she was capable of anything. Her new office was everything he'd promised. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a view that rivaled Adrian's. A desk that looked like it cost more than her car. Dual monitors already set up with her login credentials. And on the desk, a single white orchid in an expensive pot. The card read simply, for new beginnings. Elena sank into the leather chair and pulled up her email. Sure enough, Adrian had sent her detailed briefings on every current strategic initiative at Mercer Holdings. The timestamp read 4:17 a.m. He'd been awake, working, preparing her for success when he could have been sleeping, when he should have been resting after threatening Russian mobsters and planning press conferences and upending both their lives. Her phone buzzed with a text. How's the office? She typed back. Obscene. I feel like I should have an MBA just to sit at this desk. You're smarter than half the MBAs in this building. The other half are terrified of you. Enjoy it. Despite herself, Elena laughed. She was still smiling when her office door opened and a young woman entered carrying a stack of files. Miss Cruz? I'm Jennifer Park, your new assistant. Mr. Voss asked me to get you oriented before the 11 o'clock meeting. Elena straightened, pushing thoughts of orchids and late-night emails aside. Thank you, Jennifer. Let's get started. The next 3 hours were a whirlwind of information. Jennifer was efficient and thorough, walking Elena through active projects, key stakeholders, and the political landscape of the Strategic Operations Division. By the time 11 o'clock arrived, Elena's head was spinning, but she felt as prepared as possible. The conference room was packed with senior executives, all of whom turned to stare when she entered. She recognized most of them, had scheduled their meetings, prepared their presentations, managed their crises from behind Adrian's desk for 3 years. Now she was sitting across from them as an equal. Ms. Cruz, Robert Chen, the current head of strategic operations, stood to shake her hand. His grip was firm, his expression carefully neutral. Congratulations on the promotion. Thank you, Robert. Elena settled into her chair with more confidence than she felt. I'm looking forward to working with this team. I'm sure you are. The comment came from Marcus Reeves, VP of International Development, his tone just barely polite. Though some of us are curious about the timing of this promotion, given recent announcements. The room went silent. Elena met his eyes steadily. Are you suggesting I didn't earn this position, Marcus? I'm suggesting the optics are questionable. The optics are that Adrian Voss finally recognized what I've been contributing to this company for years. Elena's voice was calm but edged with steel. I've negotiated 3 major international contracts in the past 18 months. I've saved this company millions through operational efficiencies. I've managed crises that would have destroyed lesser organizations. My pregnancy has nothing to do with my qualifications. But if you'd like to challenge those qualifications, we can schedule a one-on-one meeting to review my performance record in detail. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Good. Elena pulled out her tablet. Now, I've reviewed the current strategic initiatives, and I have concerns about the Baxter acquisition timeline. Robert, can you walk me through the latest projections? For the next hour, Elena proved exactly why Adrian had promoted her. She asked incisive questions, identified risks others had missed, and proposed solutions that made even Marcus grudgingly nod in approval. By the time the meeting ended, she'd earned the respect of most of the room. She could see it in their eyes, surprise giving way to recognition that she belonged here. Robert lingered after the others left. That was impressive. And for what it's worth, I've worked with you long enough to know you earned this promotion, pregnancy or not. Welcome to the team. Thank you. Elena felt some of the tension drain from her shoulders. I appreciate that. Though I should warn you, the rumor mill is vicious. People are going to question everything you do for a while. Let them. Elena stood, gathering her materials. I've spent 3 years being invisible. I can handle being scrutinized. Robert smiled. Something tells me you're going to be just fine, Miss Cruz. After he left, Elena allowed herself a moment to simply breathe. She'd survived the press conference, survived her first meeting as VP, survived the first day of this new, complicated life. Her phone buzzed. Heard the meeting went well, told you they'd be terrified of you. Dinner tonight? We should discuss security protocols for your new position. And you need to eat. Elena stared at the message. Dinner felt dangerously close to a date. But he was right, she did need to understand the security implications of her new role. And she was hungry. Where? My place. More private. Car will pick you up at 7. She should say no. Should maintain boundaries. Should remember this was all just protective theater for dangerous people. But the truth was, she didn't want to say no. Somewhere between the press conference and the promotion, between his hand in hers and the orchid on her desk, something had shifted. She wasn't sure she liked it, but she couldn't deny it either. Fine. But I'm not dressing up. Come as you are. You're beautiful regardless. The compliment made her cheeks flush. She set the phone down and tried to focus on work, but her mind kept drifting to ice blue eyes and dangerous promises. At 7 o'clock exactly, Davis appeared at her office door. Miss Cruz, Mr. Voss is expecting you. Elena gathered her things, ignoring the knowing looks from the few remaining employees in the building. Let them speculate. Let them gossip. She was past caring. The drive took them to a part of the city she'd never visited, an exclusive neighborhood where old money lived behind gates and walls. Adrian's building was modern glass and steel, towering over its neighbors, with security that would make a fortress jealous. Mr. Voss owns the penthouse, Davis explained as they rode the elevator up. Top 3 floors. The security system is state-of-the-art. You'll have a key code and biometric access by tomorrow. Why would I need access to Adrian's apartment? Davis's expression remained carefully neutral. Mr. Voss is thorough about contingency planning, ma'am. The elevator opened directly into Adrian's penthouse, and Elena's breath caught. The space was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city, modern furniture that managed to be both elegant and comfortable, and an open floor plan that somehow felt warm despite its size. But what surprised her most was how lived-in it felt. Books on the coffee table, a suit jacket draped over a chair, photos on the mantel that showed glimpses of a life she'd never imagined. You're staring. Adrian emerged from what looked like the kitchen, carrying 2 wine glasses. He'd changed from his suit into dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. It should have made him look casual. Instead, he looked dangerously attractive. "Your home is beautiful," Elena said, meaning it. "It's a residence." Adrian handed her one of the glasses. Sparkling water, she noticed, not wine. "Home is something different." "What's the difference?" "Home is where you feel safe enough to be yourself." He gestured toward the dining area where a table had been set for two. "I'm not sure I've ever really had that." The admission was so unexpected, so vulnerable, that Elena didn't know how to respond. She followed him to the table, noting that he'd apparently cooked, or at least arranged for someone to cook. The meal was simple but elegant: grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, fresh bread. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble," she said as he held out her chair. "I wanted to." Adrian sat across from her. "And we do need to discuss security. But first, we need to talk about something else." Elena's stomach tightened. "What?" "The fact that we're about to spend the next 6 months working together, living a public relationship and preparing for a child. And we barely know each other outside of work." "We know each other." Elena picked up her fork, needing something to do with her hands. "We've worked together for 3 years." "We've worked together for 3 years with careful professional distance." Adrian's eyes were intent on hers. "But that distance is gone now. And if we're going to make this work, if we're going to convince the world and keep you safe, we need to actually know each other." "What do you want to know?" "Everything." The word was simple but weighted with meaning. Where you grew up, what you dream about, why you took a job as an executive secretary when you're clearly capable of running the entire company. Elena set down her fork. "That's a lot to ask over dinner." "Then we'll have a lot of dinners." Adrian's smile was small but genuine. "We have time, Elena. 6 months until the baby. A lifetime after that. I'd like to spend it with someone I actually know, not just someone I'm protecting." The sincerity in his voice undid something in her chest. Elena took a breath, then another, then made a decision that felt like jumping off a cliff. "Okay," she said quietly, "but it goes both ways. I want to know about you too. The real you, not the CEO or the man with mob connections. I want to know about Sophia and your father, and why you look so sad sometimes when you think no one's watching." Adrian's expression flickered with surprise, then something deeper. "Deal. But fair warning, some of my answers are going to be dark. I'm carrying your child and being threatened by Russian mobsters. I think I can handle dark." His laugh was unexpected and genuine. "You really are something, Elena Cruz." They ate and they talked. Adrian told her about growing up in a family where love was transactional and business was everything. Elena shared stories of her childhood in a small town she'd left the moment she could. He described his sister Sophia, brilliant, kind, killed in a car accident that he still blamed himself for not preventing. She admitted she'd taken the secretary position because she'd needed any job, any income, and had planned to move up but got comfortable being invisible. The conversation flowed easier than she'd expected. Without the armor of professionalism, Adrian was different, still intense, still commanding, but also surprisingly thoughtful. He listened when she spoke, asked questions that showed genuine interest, and occasionally smiled in a way that transformed his entire face. By the time dinner ended, Elena had learned more about Adrian Voss in 2 hours than she'd learned in 3 years of working beside him. "Thank you for tonight," she said as he walked her toward the elevator. "I needed this, to feel like a person instead of a problem to be solved." "You're not a problem, Elena." Adrian stopped in front of the elevator, his hand reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was achingly gentle. "You're something I didn't know I needed." Her breath caught. "Adrian, I know this isn't what you wanted. I know I pushed you into this, threatened you, left you no choice." His thumb brushed across her cheek. "But I need you to know that if I could go back, if I could do this differently, I would. I'd court you properly, give you time, let you choose me freely instead of out of fear." "You can't go back," Elena whispered. "No, but I can try to make the present better." His hand dropped, and she immediately missed the warmth. "Security briefing tomorrow. Your apartment or mine?" "Mine." She needed the familiar ground, the space that was still hers. 7 p.m. "Oh, I'll bring dinner again." The elevator arrived with a soft chime. Elena stepped inside, then turned to face him. "Adrian?" Tonight. This was nice. The talking, getting to know you. We'll do it again, he promised. As many times as it takes for you to trust me. I'm starting to, she admitted. That's what scares me. The doors closed on his small, devastating smile, and Elena leaned against the elevator wall, her heart racing. She was starting to trust Adrian Voss, starting to see him as more than just the father of her child or the man threatening to protect her. She was starting to like him. And that, she realized with dawning horror, was the most dangerous thing of all. 3 weeks passed in a blur of new routines and carefully maintained boundaries that were becoming harder to defend with each passing day. Elena settled into her role as VP with a competence that silenced even her harshest critics. She restructured the Strategic Operations Division, negotiated a partnership with a European firm that had everyone talking, and managed to do it all while morning sickness hit her like a freight train every day around 10 a.m. Adrian noticed everything. He started keeping crackers in his office, scheduled her meetings for afternoons, never commented when she had to excuse herself suddenly, just shifted conversation seamlessly until she returned. The dinners continued, sometimes at his place, sometimes at hers, always with the pretense of discussing security or company business, but increasingly they just talked. About books they'd read, places they'd traveled, dreams they'd given up on, and ones they still harbored in secret. Elena learned that Adrian spoke 4 languages fluently, had studied philosophy in college before his father forced him into business, and had a devastating weakness for old jazz music. Adrian discovered that Elena had wanted to be a lawyer once, that she sent money to her younger brother every month to help him through medical school, and that she was terrified of becoming her mother, exhausted, bitter, trapped by choices she couldn't undo. "You're nothing like that," Adrian said one night as they sat on his balcony overlooking the city lights. "You're fierce, strong. You make hard choices and own them." "I didn't choose this." Elena gestured vaguely at her stomach, which was finally starting to show a small curve beneath her clothes. "No," Adrian agreed quietly, "but you chose to stay, to fight, to build something from a situation neither of us wanted. That takes more strength than walking away would have." She'd gone home that night confused and conflicted, her carefully constructed walls crumbling a little more with every conversation. The media attention was relentless but manageable. Photos of them leaving the office together, speculation about wedding dates, think pieces about power dynamics and workplace relationships. Veronica handled it all with ruthless efficiency, feeding the press just enough information to satisfy their appetite without giving away anything real. The security remained constant. Elena's apartment building now had cameras on every floor. Her car was always followed by at least one security vehicle. Even her morning coffee run required coordination. She hated it, but she couldn't deny it was necessary. The threats came regularly. Emails to the company, anonymous messages on social media. Once, a bouquet of black roses left at the reception desk with a card that read simply, "Enjoy her while you can." Adrian had gone deadly quiet when he saw those roses. Then he'd made 3 phone calls in rapid succession, his voice dropping into a register Elena had never heard before. Cold, controlled, absolutely lethal. The threats stopped for a week after that. Elena didn't ask what he'd done. She was learning that some parts of Adrian's world were better left unexamined. But tonight, everything was about to change. Elena was working late in her office, reviewing contracts for the morning meeting, when her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Your pretty press conference didn't change anything. Adrian Voss will learn that some debts can't be erased with threats. Check your email." Her hand shook as she opened her laptop. The email was waiting, no sender name, just a subject line that made her blood run cold. The truth about Elena Cruz. Inside was a dossier, photos of her apartment building, her brother's medical school, her parents' home in the small town she'd left behind. Details about her life that should have been private, innocuous, but felt like violations when compiled by strangers. And at the bottom, a single line. "We know everything, and soon everyone else will too." Elena was reaching for her phone to call Adrian when her office door burst open. He stood in the doorway, his expression darker than she'd ever seen it, his phone clutched in his hand. "Did you get it?" "The email? Yes, just now. They're going to leak it." Adrian crossed the room in 3 strides. "Everything. Your background, your family, details they have no right to know. They're going to try to destroy your reputation to get to me." Elena's stomach dropped. What kind of details? Adrian's jaw tightened. Does it matter? They'll twist anything into ammunition. Your brother's student loans could become you marrying me for money. Your parents' financial struggles could become gold digging. They'll make you look calculating, manipulative, like you trapped me deliberately. But none of that is true. Truth doesn't matter to people like this. Adrian's hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. They're going to paint you as a villain, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. For the first time since this nightmare began, Elena saw something in Adrian's eyes that looked like helplessness. It was more terrifying than his anger. When? She asked quietly. Tomorrow morning. Major outlets. They've already sent preview copies to journalists. He pulled out his phone, showed her the email chain Veronica had forwarded. We have maybe 12 hours before your life becomes a media circus. Elena sank into her chair, her hand instinctively going to her stomach. The baby, their baby, was barely the size of a lemon, but already its existence was tearing her world apart. What do? We fight back. Adrian knelt in front of her, his hands covering hers on her stomach. The gesture was unconscious, protective, devastatingly intimate. Veronica is already preparing a counter-narrative. We'll get ahead of the story, control the message. Adrian, stop. Elena pulled her hands away, needing to think clearly. This isn't about messaging. This is about them threatening my family, my brother, my parents. I know. His voice was rough. I've already sent security teams to all of them. Your brother's apartment, your parents' house, they'll be protected. You can't just assign bodyguards to my family without asking. I can, and I did. Adrian stood, began pacing her office like a caged animal. Because the alternative is leaving them vulnerable to people who will use them to hurt you, to hurt our child. And I won't allow that. Elena watched him move, this powerful man barely containing his fury, and felt something shift inside her chest. He wasn't trying to control her. He was trying to protect everyone she loved because hurting them would hurt her. Thank you, she said quietly. Adrian stopped pacing, turned to stare at her. What? For protecting my family, for caring about the people I care about. She stood, crossed to him. I know this isn't what you signed up for either, but you're trying, really trying. And I appreciate that. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or hope. Elena. Her phone rang, shattering the moment. She glanced at the screen and felt her blood turn to ice. It's my mother. Answer it. Adrian stepped back, giving her space. I'll give you privacy. No, stay. Elena didn't want to examine why she needed him there, just accepted that she did. She answered the call. Mom? Elena Marie Cruz, what the hell is going on? Her mother's voice was sharp with panic. There are men outside our house. Big men in suits who say they're here to protect us. And your father just got a call from some reporter asking about your relationship with Adrian Voss. What have you gotten yourself into? Elena closed her eyes against the familiar disappointment in her mother's tone. Mom, I'm sorry. I should have called you myself. I'm pregnant. The father is my boss, Adrian Voss. And there are some people who want to use that against him, which means you and Dad might be in danger. In danger? Her mother's voice pitched higher. Elena, what are you talking about? What kind of man did you get involved with? A complicated one. Elena opened her eyes, found Adrian watching her with an expression she couldn't read. But he's a good man, Mom. And he's protecting our family. Our family? You barely talk to us anymore. You send money like that makes up for abandoning. I didn't abandon anyone. The old argument rose up, familiar and bitter. I left a town with no opportunities to build a life. That's not abandonment. That's survival. And now you're pregnant by some rich man with enemies dangerous enough to need bodyguards. Is this the life you wanted, Elena? Is this better? The question hit harder than her mother probably intended. Was this better? A high-powered job, a complicated relationship, a child on the way, and threats from Russian mobsters. She looked at Adrian, who was deliberately not listening but couldn't help hearing in the small office. At this man who brought her crackers during morning sickness and sent security teams to protect her family and looked at her sometimes like she was the most important thing in his world. Yes, Elena said quietly. It's better. Because I chose it, Even the parts I didn't plan for, I'm choosing now. That's more than you ever had, Mom. Silence on the other end. Then, softer, "Is he good to you? This Adrian?" Elena's throat tightened. "He's trying to be. We're both trying." "Then I suppose that's all anyone can ask for." Her mother sighed. "Keep the security. Your father is already arguing with them, but keep them anyway. And Elena, call your brother. He's worried sick." "I will. I love you, Mom." "Love you too, baby. Even when you're making my hair gray with worry." The call ended and Elena set the phone down with shaking hands. "That went better than expected." "Your mother sounds formidable." Adrian's voice was carefully neutral. "She is. Had to be, raising 3 kids on a waitress's salary after my dad got injured and couldn't work construction anymore." Elena turned to face him fully. "She taught me that you do what you have to do, whatever it takes to protect the people you love." "Sounds like someone else I know." Adrian's expression softened. "Are you okay?" "No." The honesty surprised her. "I'm terrified. Of the media leak. Of the Volkovs. Of this whole situation. But I'm also—" She trailed off, searching for words. "Also what?" "Starting to believe we might survive this." Elena crossed to him, stood close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. "Together. As a team. Not just as people forced into proximity." Adrian's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone in a gesture that had become familiar over their dinners. "Elena, I need to tell you something." "What?" "That night, the merger celebration, when everything changed between us." His eyes were intense on hers. "It wasn't just the champagne. It wasn't just physical. I'd been fighting feelings for you for months, maybe longer. And that night, for just a few hours, I let myself stop fighting." Elena's breath caught. "Adrian, I know this isn't the time. I know we have bigger problems right now. But if we're facing down a media storm tomorrow, if the whole world is going to dissect our relationship, I needed you to know the truth." His voice dropped, became almost vulnerable. "This might have started as a mistake, but it's not one I regret. Not anymore." Elena's heart was racing so fast she thought it might burst. "You're saying you have feelings for me. I'm saying I've had feelings for you for a long time. I just didn't know how to handle them until circumstances forced my hand." A wry smile crossed his face. "Not my finest moment of emotional intelligence." Despite everything, the threats, the fear, the impossible situation, Elena laughed. "That might be the understatement of the century." "Probably." Adrian's other hand found her waist, pulling her incrementally closer. "But we're here now, and I'm asking you, before the storm hits tomorrow, to tell me the truth. Is there any chance you could feel the same way? Eventually? Or am I deluding myself?" Elena looked up at this man who'd upended her entire life, who'd threatened and protected and infuriated her in equal measure, who brought her dinner and learned her coffee order and looked at her like she was precious, who was offering her a future she'd never imagined but was starting to want desperately. "I don't know what I feel," she said honestly, "except that when I'm with you, I feel less afraid. And when you look at me like you are right now, I feel like maybe this whole mess might actually turn into something good." "That's enough." Adrian's smile was small, but genuine. "That's more than enough to work with." He was leaning down, and Elena was rising up to meet him when her office door flew open again. Veronica stood in the doorway, her expression grim. "We have a problem. A bigger one." Adrian's arms tightened protectively around Elena before he released her and turned to face his crisis manager. "What now?" "The leak isn't tomorrow. It's happening now. Someone jumped the timeline." Veronica held up her tablet. "It's already trending on social media, and it's worse than we thought." Elena moved to see the screen, and her stomach dropped. The headline read, "Gold Digger or Victim? The Truth About Adrian Voss's Pregnant Secretary." Below it were photos, her apartment building, her family home, her brother at medical school, and worse, screenshots of text messages she didn't recognize, conversations she'd never had, all carefully fabricated to make her look calculating and mercenary. "This is fake," Elena breathed. "I never sent these messages." "Doesn't matter." Veronica's voice was tight. "People are already sharing it. The narrative is that you targeted Adrian deliberately, got pregnant to trap him, and are now using his power to threaten anyone who exposes the truth. Adrian had gone absolutely still beside her, a stillness that Elena was learning meant he was at his most dangerous. Who leaked it? We're tracking the source now, but it's sophisticated. Multiple VPNs, offshore servers. This is an amateur hour. Veronica looked between them. We need to respond immediately. Counter-narrative, character witnesses, something to stop this from spiraling. No. Adrian's voice was cold steel. We're done playing defense. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we stop letting the Volkovs control this narrative. Adrian pulled out his phone, dialed a number. It's time to end this. Permanently. Elena grabbed his arm. Adrian, what are you doing? Calling Dmitry Volkov, setting up a meeting. His eyes were ice. If he wants a war, I'll give him one. But it ends tonight. You can't just... This is insane. Elena. He covered her hand with his, the gesture gentle despite the violence in his voice. Trust me. Please. One more time. Trust me to end this. She looked into those blue eyes that had terrified her once and now just made her heart ache, and made a choice that felt like free-falling. Okay, but I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. I'm coming with you, Elena repeated, her voice firm. This is my life they're destroying. My reputation. My family. I have a right to face the people doing this. Elena, these men are dangerous. So are you. She lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of strength she possessed. And I'm carrying your child, which apparently makes me valuable enough to kidnap. So I'm already in danger. The only question is whether I face it hiding in an office or standing beside you. Adrian stared at her for a long moment, something like awe flickering across his face. You're incredible. Do you know that? I'm terrified. There's a difference. No. His hand cupped her face again. Courage is being terrified and doing it anyway. And you, Elena Cruz, are the bravest person I've ever met. Before she could respond, he was speaking into the phone, his voice dropping into that cold, controlled register that sent shivers down her spine. Dmitry, it's Adrian. You want to meet? Let's meet. Neutral ground, 1 hour. And Dmitry, if you've harmed anyone in her family, there won't be enough of you left to bury. He ended the call and turned to Veronica. Get our best security team ready, full tactical gear, and call Marcus Chen. I want our lawyer present. Adrian, this is a terrible idea. It's the only idea that ends this without more casualties. He was already moving, pulling Elena with him toward the elevator. Come on, we have an hour to prepare. The car ride to the meeting location was tense and silent. Adrian had changed into darker clothes, strapped a gun to his side with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Elena sat beside him in the back of the armored town car, her hand resting on her stomach, trying to calm the racing of her heart. Where are we meeting? She asked finally. One of my warehouses near the docks. Neutral territory, plenty of space for both security teams and cameras everywhere. Adrian's hand found hers, squeezed. I won't let anything happen to you. What about you? I've been doing this since I was 23, when my father died and I inherited his empire and all its complications. His voice was matter of fact. I know how to handle men like Dmitry Volkov. The warehouse was exactly as he'd described, massive, industrial, with Adrian's security team already positioned at every entrance. Elena counted at least a dozen men, all armed, all watching the perimeter with professional alertness. Inside, the space was cavernous and cold. Adrian led her to a cleared area in the center where 2 chairs sat facing each other with about 10 feet of space between them. You'll sit here. He gestured to one of the chairs. I'll be across from Dmitry. Security will be watching from the catwalks. At the first sign of trouble, you run. Davis will be right behind you, and he'll get you out. Adrian, promise me. His hands gripped her shoulders, his eyes burning into hers. Whatever happens, you run. You protect our child. Promise me, Elena. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she wouldn't leave him, but the absolute desperation in his voice stopped her. I promise. He kissed her forehead, a gesture so tender it made her throat tight. Thank you. For trusting me, for being here, for being you. Before she could respond, the warehouse doors opened. Dmitry Volkov walked in, flanked by 4 men who looked like they could break bones with their bare hands. He was younger than Elena expected, maybe 40, with sharp features and eyes that held no warmth whatsoever. Adrian Voss. Dmitry's accent was thick, his smile mocking. You brought your little secretary. How touching. She's not my secretary anymore. Adrian's voice was flat, dangerous. She's the mother of my child, and you've made a grave mistake threatening her. Mistake? Dmitry laughed, the sound echoing in the empty space. The mistake was yours, Adrian. Thinking you could refuse my very reasonable business proposal. Thinking you could protect everyone you care about. Thinking you're untouchable. I am untouchable. Adrian sat in the chair facing Dmitry with the casual confidence of a king on a throne. And so is she, which is why we're here, to make sure you understand that. Dmitry settled into his own chair, still smiling that cold smile. You want to negotiate? Fine. Give me access to your shipping routes, your contacts in Europe, your distribution network, and I'll make all of this, he waved vaguely at Elena, go away. No. Adrian's voice was absolute. You'll retract every lie you've published about her. You'll destroy whatever dirt you think you have on her family. And you'll leave this city and never threaten what's mine again. Dmitry's smile faded. You're not in a position to make demands. I'm in the only position that matters. Adrian leaned forward, his voice dropping to something almost conversational. You see, Dmitry, while you were busy fabricating text messages and threatening pregnant women, I was busy too. I bought your debt. All of it. The money you owe to the Bratva. The loans you took out to expand your territory. The gambling debts your idiot nephew racked up in Atlantic City. All of it. It's mine now. The color drained from Dmitry's face. You're lying. Am I? Adrian pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and suddenly the warehouse's projection system lit up with documents. Loan agreements, debt transfers, all bearing Dmitry Volkov's signature. I own you now, and I'm calling in everything unless you do exactly what I say. Elena watched Dmitry's expression cycle through disbelief, rage, and finally, fear. This was Adrian's world, the one he'd warned her about, where power was currency and debts were weapons. You can't. The Bratva won't allow. The Bratva already approved the transfer. Adrian's smile was colder than ice. Turns out they like me better than you. Something about me being more profitable and less prone to reckless stunts like kidnapping pregnant women. Dmitry's hands clenched on the arms of his chair. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Adrian stood, and Elena saw the gun at his hip, saw the absolute certainty in his posture. You're going to retract everything. Tonight. Every story, every post, every lie. You're going to issue a public apology for the misinformation. And then you're going to leave this city and conduct your business somewhere far away from me and mine. Or I'll call in your debts and watch your empire crumble. And if I refuse? Adrian's expression went dead. Then you won't leave this warehouse. Your men will. But you won't. And tomorrow morning, the Bratva will have a new territory to divvy up among people more competent than you. The threat hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Elena's heart was hammering so hard she could barely breathe, but she forced herself to remain still, to project the same calm confidence Adrian wore like armor. Dmitry looked between Adrian and Elena, calculation visible in his eyes. Finally, he spat something in Russian and gestured to his men. Fine. You win this round, Voss, but someday your protection won't be enough. Someday she'll be vulnerable, and I'll be waiting. Adrian moved so fast Elena barely saw it. One moment he was standing 3 feet away from Dmitry. The next, he had the Russian by the throat, the gun pressed against his temple. Listen very carefully, Adrian said, his voice barely above a whisper but carrying absolute conviction. If you ever threaten her again, if you ever so much as think her name, I will find you. I will destroy everything you've ever built, and then I will end you, slowly, painfully, in ways that will make you beg for death. Do you understand me? Dmitry's eyes were wide with genuine fear now. He managed a jerky nod. Adrian released him and stepped back, the gun disappearing back into its holster. Good. Get out of my city. You have 24 hours. Dmitry and his men left without another word, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. The moment they were gone, Elena's legs gave out. Adrian caught her before she hit the ground, his arms wrapping around her as she shook with delayed reaction. I've got you. You're safe. You did so well, Elena. So incredibly well. You could have killed him. Her voice was muffled against his chest. I would have. If he'd pushed any harder, I would have. Adrian's hand stroked her hair, a soothing rhythm. But you're worth more than that. Worth more than becoming the reason I commit murder. Elena pulled back enough to look up at him. You bought his debts. When? Been working on it for 2 weeks, since the first threat. A small smile crossed his face. I told you I protect what's mine. I just didn't mention I also destroy anyone who threatens it. That was the most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed. I know. I'm sorry you had to see that side of me. His thumb brushed across her cheek, catching a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. But I need you to understand. This is who I am. This is the world I live in. And if you stay with me, you'll see more of it. Elena looked into his eyes, saw the question there, the vulnerability, the hope that she wouldn't run now that she'd seen the monster beneath the elegant suits. Take me home, she said quietly. Adrian's expression shuddered. Of course. Davis will... You're home, Adrian. She gripped his shirt, held him in place. Take me to your home. I don't want to be alone tonight. Something like wonder crossed his face. Elena, please. She wasn't sure what she was asking for, only knew she needed it, needed him, needed to feel safe in a world that had just shown her how dangerous it truly was. Adrian nodded, then lifted her into his arms as if she weighed nothing. Elena didn't protest, just let him carry her to the car, let Davis drive them through the city streets, let herself be held by this complicated, dangerous, protective man who just threatened murder to keep her safe. They arrived at his penthouse in silence. Adrian set her down gently in his living room, then moved to pour her water from the kitchen. You should rest, he said, handing her the glass. I'll take the guest room. You can have my bed. Stay with me. The words were out before she could second-guess them. I don't want to be alone. Just stay with me. Adrian's expression was unreadable. Elena, you're shaken, scared. I don't want to take advantage. You're not. She set down the water and moved closer to him. I'm asking, clearly. I want you to stay with me, hold me, help me forget what I just saw for a little while. I don't know if I can forget, Adrian admitted. I keep replaying what could have gone wrong. What would have happened if he'd called my bluff? You weren't bluffing. Elena's hand found his chest, felt his heart racing beneath her palm. You would have killed him. For me. For our child. In a heartbeat. No hesitation. Does that terrify you? Yes. She met his eyes steadily. But it also makes me feel safer than I've ever felt in my life. And I don't know what that says about me. It says you're a survivor. Adrian's arms came around her, and Elena melted into the embrace. It says you understand that sometimes the world requires monsters to fight monsters. And it says you're brave enough to stand beside one. They stood there in his living room, holding each other as the adrenaline slowly faded and exhaustion took its place. Finally, Adrian pulled back enough to meet her eyes. Come on, let's get you to bed. He led her to his bedroom, a massive space dominated by a king-size bed with the windows overlooking the city. Elena sat on the edge while Adrian disappeared into his closet, returning with a soft t-shirt. This will be more comfortable than your dress. He handed it to her, then turned away to give her privacy. Elena changed quickly, the shirt falling to mid-thigh, smelling like him in ways that made her stomach flutter. You can look now. Adrian turned back, and something heated flashed in his eyes before he controlled it. You should sleep. It's been a hell of a night. Will you stay? She climbed under the covers, suddenly afraid he'd leave her alone. Do you want me to? Yes. He kicked off his shoes and slid into the bed beside her, staying carefully on top of the covers, maintaining that last boundary between them. Elena rolled toward him, and his arm came around her instinctively, pulling her close. Thank you, she whispered into the darkness, for protecting me, for ending this, for being terrifying and gentle at the same time. Thank you for not running. His lips brushed her forehead. For seeing the worst of me and staying anyway. Elena's hand found his over her stomach, their fingers intertwining over the tiny life growing inside her. We're in this together now, all the way. No more halfway, no more pretending this is just about protection. What is it about? Adrian's voice was rough with something that sounded like hope. I don't know yet. She turned her face up to his, found him closer than she expected. But I want to find out, if you do. Elena, I've wanted nothing else since the moment I realized I was falling for you. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. I'm just terrified I'll fail you, like I failed Sophia. You didn't fail her. You told me. Car accident, brake failure. That wasn't your fault. I knew she was in danger, knew my enemies might target her, but I thought keeping her at a distance would protect her. His voice cracked. I was wrong, and she died because I didn't hold on tight enough. Elena's heart broke for the pain in his voice. I'm not Sophia, and you're not letting go of me. We're going to survive this, together. Adrian pulled her impossibly closer, burying his face in her hair. I hope you're right, because losing you would destroy me. They fell asleep tangled together, boundaries crossed and new ones forming, in a bed that smelled like safety and felt like home for the first time in Elena's life. Tomorrow, they'd face the aftermath of tonight's confrontation. Tomorrow, they'd deal with the media and the company and the world's judgment. But tonight, they had this, each other. The truth of what was growing between them, as undeniable as the child growing inside her. And for now, that was enough. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the unfamiliar weight of an arm around her waist. For a disoriented moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then the events of last night crashed back. The warehouse, Dmitry Volkov's threats, Adrian's cold fury, and the choice she'd made to stay. She turned carefully, not wanting to wake him, and found Adrian already awake, watching her with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. How long have you been awake? She whispered. About an hour. His thumb traced lazy circles on her hip through the thin fabric of his t-shirt. Couldn't stop watching you sleep. You look peaceful, like the world isn't complicated. It is, though. Elena shifted closer, drawn by the warmth radiating from him. Incredibly complicated. Yes. Adrian's hand slid up to cup her face. But maybe that's okay. Maybe complicated is better than simple. Before Elena could respond, his phone buzzed insistently on the nightstand. Adrian groaned, reaching for it without releasing her. His expression darkened as he read the screen. What is it? Veronica. The retraction went live an hour ago. Dmitry kept his word. Adrian showed her the screen. Every major outlet that had published the fabricated story now had a prominent correction, citing unverified sources and misinformation. Some even included apologies to Elena directly. It's over? Elena couldn't quite believe it. The immediate threat, yes. Adrian set the phone down, his attention returning to her. But there will be fallout, questions about how the retraction happened so quickly, speculation about what leverage I used. The media doesn't like admitting they were wrong. Let them speculate. Elena surprised herself with her own certainty. We know the truth. That's enough. Adrian's smile was slow and devastating. When did you become so fearless? When I realized being afraid wasn't protecting me. It was just making me miserable. She reached up, traced the line of his jaw. And when I realized I had someone worth being brave for. Elena. Her name was a rough whisper. I need to tell you something. What? Last night, when you asked me to stay, when you let me hold you, he paused, seeming to struggle with the words. That meant more to me than any business deal I've ever closed, any victory I've ever won. Because you chose it. Chose me. Even after seeing the worst parts of who I am. Elena's throat tightened. Adrian, those parts aren't the worst of you. They're just the parts you use to protect what matters. There's a difference. Is there? His eyes searched hers. I threatened to kill a man last night. I bought another man's debt specifically so I could destroy him. Those aren't the actions of a good person. Good is complicated. Elena shifted, propping herself up on one elbow so she could look down at him. You also protected my family, ended a threat that could have destroyed my life, made sure my brother and parents were safe. Those are the actions of someone who cares, Someone who uses power for something other than just accumulating more power. Adrian's hand slid into her hair, pulling her down until their foreheads touched. How are you so sure about me when I'm not sure about myself? Because I've spent 3 years watching you make impossible decisions with more integrity than most people could manage. Because you've never lied to me, even when the truth was ugly. Because you look at our child like it's a miracle instead of a complication. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Because last night, you could have just had Dimitri killed and been done with it. But you gave him a way out. Even someone who threatened me, you gave them mercy. That wasn't mercy. That was strategy. It was both. Elena's hand found his chest, felt his heart racing beneath her palm. You're both, Adrian. Strategic and merciful. Dangerous and protective. Ruthless and gentle. And I'm starting to think maybe that's exactly what I need. Something shifted in his expression, vulnerability giving way to heat. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm tired of pretending this is just about the baby. Tired of maintaining distance when all I want is to be closer. Her voice dropped. I'm saying that when I woke up in your arms this morning, it felt right. And I want to see where this goes. If you do. Adrian's response was to pull her down into a kiss that stole her breath and made the world disappear. It was nothing like their first kiss months ago, that had been champagne and recklessness and mutual surrender to something they couldn't control. This was deliberate, conscious, a choice they were both making with clear eyes and racing hearts. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since the press conference, since you stood beside me and faced down the cameras like you owned the world. I was terrified. You were magnificent. He kissed her again, softer this time. You're always magnificent, even when you're terrified, especially then. Elena's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. She groaned, reaching for it on Adrian's nightstand. A text from her brother, Michael. Mom told me everything. Are you okay? Do I need to come home? Also, who are these guys in suits outside my building? She showed the message to Adrian, who had the grace to look slightly sheepish. I might have been overly cautious with the security detail. You think? But Elena was smiling as she typed back. I'm fine. The suits are temporary. Stay in school. And yes, we need to talk. Soon. Love you. Another message appeared, this one from Veronica. Office in 1 hour. We need to discuss the promotion strategy now that the crisis is contained. Reality was reasserting itself with the inevitability of sunrise. Elena sighed, setting the phone down. We should probably get ready for work. Probably. Adrian made no move to release her. Or we could stay here, let the world sort itself out for once. Tempting. But I have a meeting with the European partners at 10, and you have that board presentation. Elena forced herself to sit up, immediately missing his warmth. Besides, we have to face everyone eventually. Might as well do it now. Adrian rose with fluid grace, crossing to his closet. There are spare toiletries in the guest bathroom, and I had some clothes brought over for you. Professional options, various sizes. They're in the closet there. Elena paused halfway to the bathroom. When did you have clothes brought over? Last week. Adrian emerged with a fresh suit. After you mentioned hating emergency wardrobe changes. Figured it made sense to have options here, just in case. The casual thoughtfulness of it made her chest tight. Thank you. You keep thanking me for basic consideration. His expression was puzzled. Why? Because most people don't think that far ahead. Don't plan for someone else's comfort without being asked. Elena crossed back to him, rose on her toes to press a quick kiss to his jaw. You do. Even when you're busy threatening mobsters and running an empire. She left him standing there, looking stunned and headed for the guest bathroom, her heart lighter than it had been in months. The clothes Adrian had selected were perfect. Professional, but not stuffy, various styles that accounted for her changing body. Elena chose a deep blue dress that skimmed her figure without clinging, paired it with the heels from yesterday, and emerged feeling more like herself than she had since this whole ordeal began. Adrian was waiting in the kitchen, 2 travel mugs of coffee, decaf for her, she noticed, and a paper bag that smelled like heaven. Breakfast sandwiches from that place you like on 5th? He handed her both. You mentioned craving their eggs last week. Elena stared at him. You remembered a casual comment I made about breakfast food? I remember everything you tell me. Adrian shrugged into his suit jacket. It's not difficult when someone actually interests you. They rode to Mercer Holdings together, Davis navigating morning traffic with practiced ease. Elena found herself watching Adrian review documents on his tablet, his brow furrowed in concentration, and felt a wave of affection so strong it surprised her. What? Adrian glanced up, catching her staring. Nothing, just, this is nice, the routine of it, going to work together. We've gone to work together for 3 years. Not like this, Elena gestured between them. Not as whatever we are now. Adrian's smile was soft. Partners, in every sense of the word, if that's what you want. It is. The certainty in her voice surprised them both. The moment they entered the building, Elena felt the weight of dozens of eyes. Whispers followed them across the lobby, through the elevator, down the hall to the executive floor. Some curious, some speculative, some openly hostile. Elena lifted her chin and ignored them all. Ms. Cruz, Jennifer was waiting at her office, looking relieved. Thank goodness. The phones have been ringing nonstop since the retractions went live. Everyone wants a statement. Draft a simple response. Something like, we appreciate the corrections and consider the matter closed. Ms. Cruz's focus remains on her work at Mercer Holdings. Elena settled behind her desk, feeling the familiar comfort of her professional role. Send it to Veronica for approval before releasing it. Already done. Veronica appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. I took the liberty. Also, Elena, you need to see this. She turned the tablet around. The screen showed a news article, not about the pregnancy or the scandal, but about Elena herself. VP Elena Cruz, the strategic mind behind Mercer Holdings' recent successes. Elena skimmed the article, her eyes widening. It detailed her role in the Nakamura merger, the European partnership she'd just closed, the operational improvements she'd implemented, all factual, all focused on her professional achievements rather than her personal life. How did this happen? Adrian called in some favors, got friendly journalists to shift the narrative. Veronica's expression was approving. By this afternoon, you'll be known for your competence, not your pregnancy, which is exactly how it should be. Elena looked through the glass wall of her office toward Adrian's, caught him watching her. He raised his coffee cup in a small salute, and she felt warmth flood through her chest. He's good at this, Veronica observed, protecting people he cares about. You're not the first, but you might be the most important. What do you mean? Veronica hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. 5 years ago, when his sister died, Adrian blamed himself. Went dark for months, made some dangerous enemies, nearly destroyed everything his father built trying to get revenge. I thought we'd lost him, but eventually he came back, colder, more controlled, more careful about what he cared about. He told me about Sophia. Did he tell you he's been paying for her daughter's education? That he set up a foundation in her name that funds domestic violence shelters? Veronica's voice was gentle. That he tracks down every drunk driver in the city and makes sure they face consequences, legal or otherwise? Elena's throat tightened. No, he didn't mention that. Because he doesn't want credit. He wants to fix the unfixable. Veronica straightened. I'm telling you this because you need to understand, when Adrian Voss cares about someone, he doesn't do it halfway. And he hasn't cared about anyone like he cares about you since Sophia died. Don't take that lightly. She left, and Elena sat at her desk, processing. A foundation. Education funds. Justice for his sister pursued long after her death. All the pieces of Adrian she was still discovering, all the ways he turned grief into action. Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. Stop thinking so hard. I can see the wheels turning from here. She looked up, found him watching through their respective office windows. She typed back, Veronica told me about the foundation, Sophia's daughter, the drunk drivers. A long pause, then, she talks too much. She talks just enough. Thank you. For turning something terrible into something that helps people. It doesn't bring her back. No. But it means she mattered. That her death changed things. That's more than most people get. She watched him read the message, saw his expression soften. He typed something, deleted it, typed again. Have dinner with me tonight. Not about security or business, just dinner. A real date. Elena's heart skipped. We've had dinner together every night for 3 weeks. Those were strategy sessions and protection protocols. I want to take you somewhere nice. Court you properly. Pretend we're normal people on a normal date. We're not normal people. Humor me anyway." Elena smiled at her phone. "Pick me up at 7. And Adrian? I'd like that. A lot." The day passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls. Elena closed the European partnership deal, impressed a room full of skeptical executives with her strategic vision, and managed to forget for hours at a time that she was pregnant and being courted by a man who threatened mobsters in his spare time. At 6:30, she was packing up when Jennifer appeared with a large box. "Delivery for you, Ms. Cruz," from Adrian Voss. Inside was a dress, deep emerald green, elegant but not overly formal, with a note in Adrian's precise handwriting. "For tonight, if you'd like. If not, wear whatever makes you feel like yourself. I'll love you either way." Elena's breath caught. He'd written love, not like, not appreciate. Love. She picked up her phone, called his direct line. "You wrote love." No preamble. "I did." Adrian's voice was calm. "Is that a problem?" "I don't know. Is it true?" A pause, then quietly. "Yes. I didn't mean to say it like this, was planning to work up to it. But yes, Elena, I love you. I've been falling for months, and I'm done pretending I'm not." Elena sank into her chair, the dress still clutched in her other hand. "Adrian, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for reciprocation. Just wanted you to know." His voice was gentle. "Wear the dress if you want. I'll still pick you up at 7 either way." He hung up before she could respond, and Elena sat in her office staring at the phone, her heart racing. Adrian Voss loved her. The powerful, dangerous, complicated man who'd upended her entire life had just casually admitted to loving her in the middle of a Thursday afternoon. And the terrifying part? She was starting to think she might love him too. Elena wore the dress. It fit perfectly, hugging her curves and accommodating her small bump with expert tailoring. She paired it with simple jewelry and let her hair fall loose around her shoulders. When Adrian arrived at her apartment at exactly 7, his reaction made every moment of preparation worthwhile. He stood in her doorway, struck absolutely speechless, his eyes darkening with heat and something deeper. "You're stunning," he finally managed. "You bought the dress." "I bought a dress. You made it devastating." He offered his arm. "Ready?" The restaurant was intimate and exclusive, the kind of place where privacy was guaranteed and the menu didn't list prices. Adrian had reserved a corner table with a view of the city lights, secluded enough for conversation but visible enough to avoid any suggestion of impropriety. "I thought about taking you somewhere more public," Adrian said as they settled into their seats. "Making a statement, but then I realized I wanted you to myself for a few hours. Selfish, I know." "I'm okay with selfish." Elena accepted the menu, scanning options. "Especially after the week we've had." They ordered, and as the waiter departed, Adrian reached across the table to take her hand. "I want to apologize for earlier, the note. Springing that on you wasn't fair." It was honest. Elena threaded her fingers through his. "And I'm tired of dishonesty, even the well-intentioned kind." "Still, love is a big word, especially given our circumstances." Elena studied him in the candlelight, this man who'd become essential to her in ways she was still discovering. "Can I ask you something? And will you answer honestly?" "Always." "If I wasn't pregnant, would you still want this? Us?" Adrian's expression softened. "Elena, I wanted this before you were pregnant. The baby just forced me to stop being a coward about it." He squeezed her hand. "I spent 3 years watching you handle impossible situations with grace. 3 years wanting to cross the professional line and never finding the courage. The baby didn't create my feelings. It just made it impossible to hide them anymore. So this isn't about obligation. This is about finally having an excuse to pursue something I've wanted since approximately the 2nd month you worked for me." A wry smile crossed his face. "When you told off that hostile board member in the meeting, remember?" Elena laughed, the memory surfacing. "Marcus Chen was being an ass about the quarterly projections. You eviscerated him with facts and a smile. I was half in love with you right then. Adrian's thumb traced circles on her palm. It's only gotten worse since. The waiter returned with their meals, and they ate, talking about everything and nothing. Books they'd read, places they wanted to travel, dreams they'd shelved. Adrian told her about wanting to teach philosophy before his father died. Elena confessed she'd almost become a lawyer but couldn't afford the debt. You still could, Adrian said. If you wanted, I'd pay for law school. That's not... I couldn't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm offering. He leaned forward. Elena, I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. Let me use it for something that matters. For someone who matters. She wanted to argue. Wanted to maintain her independence. But the genuine desire in his eyes to give her this, to help her reclaim a dream she'd abandoned, made her pause. Let me think about it, she said finally. Take all the time you need. Adrian sat back. The offer stands, always. They were finishing dessert when Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. What's wrong? Nothing urgent, but we should probably head back. He signaled for the check. There's been a development with the Volkov situation. Elena's stomach dropped. I thought it was over. It is. This is just cleanup. Adrian helped her with her coat, his hand lingering on her shoulder. Dmitri left the city this morning, headed to Miami. My sources confirm he's not coming back. Then what's the development? Adrian guided her toward the exit, his hand at the small of her back. One of his lieutenants didn't get the memo about leaving you alone. Made some threats on social media, very stupid threats. Adrian, what did you do? Me? Nothing, yet. His smile was cold, but I have people having a conversation with him right now, making sure he understands the consequences of ignoring direct orders from his former boss. You're having someone beaten up. I'm having someone educated about boundaries. Adrian held the car door open for her. There's a difference. Elena slid into the car, her mind racing. This was Adrian's world, the one where problems were solved with force and threats were answered with violence. She should be horrified, should demand he call off his people. Instead, she found herself asking, will it work? Adrian's expression shifted, surprise flickering across his face. Yes. By morning, every remaining member of Volkov's organization will know that threatening you is a death sentence. Good. The word surprised them both. Elena, I'm tired of being afraid. She turned to face him in the back seat. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of worrying if my family is safe. If your people can end that, then I'm okay with however they do it. Adrian stared at her for a long moment. You continue to surprise me. Good. I'd hate to be predictable. Elena leaned against him as the car pulled into traffic. Take me home, Adrian. You're home. I don't want to be alone tonight. Are you sure? I'm sure. She looked up at him. I'm sure about a lot of things now. About us. About this. About choosing you even when it's complicated. Adrian's arm came around her, pulling her close. I don't deserve you? Probably not. Elena's smile was soft. But you've got me anyway. They spent the night tangled together in Adrian's bed, talking until the early hours about futures they were building and pasts they were leaving behind. When Elena finally fell asleep in his arms, it was with the certainty that whatever came next, they'd face it together. The next morning, Elena woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. She found Adrian in the kitchen, cooking breakfast with the same focused intensity he brought to everything. You cook? She settled onto a bar stool, accepting the orange juice he offered. I cook breakfast. Everything else, I have caters. He plated eggs with surprising skill. But I wanted to do this for you. Start the day right. They ate together as sunlight streamed through the windows, and Elena felt something settle in her chest. Peace, maybe. Or hope. Or the beginning of love that might actually last. I have the 20-week ultrasound next Wednesday, she said, breaking the comfortable silence. Would you want to come? Adrian's fork clattered against his plate. You want me there? Of course I want you there. It's your baby too. Elena reached across to take his hand. And I want to find out the gender together. If you're interested. Interested? Adrian's voice was rough. Elena, I'd move mountains to be at that appointment. Then it's a date. She smiled at his obvious emotion. Fair warning, They do this thing where they press really hard on your stomach, and it's uncomfortable, and I might squeeze your hand until it goes numb. Squeeze away. Adrian brought her hand to his lips. I'll be there. For every appointment, every milestone, everything. Elena believed him, and that belief felt like the foundation of something real, something lasting, something worth every complication it took to build. The week leading up to the ultrasound passed in a haze of normalcy that felt almost surreal. Work consumed Elena's days. She successfully restructured the entire strategic operations division, earning grudging respect from even her harshest critics. Adrian's nights were spent either in her apartment or his penthouse, the line between their spaces blurring until it seemed natural to find his razor in her bathroom or her favorite tea in his kitchen. They were building something, a life, a partnership, a family. The morning of the ultrasound, Adrian showed up at her apartment with a nervous energy she'd never seen before. "You're fidgeting," Elena observed as they rode the elevator down. "I'm not fidgeting. You've checked your phone 6 times in 2 minutes." Adrian pocketed the phone. "I want everything to be okay. The baby. You. All of it." Elena's heart melted. "It will be. Dr. Morrison said everything looks perfect." "I know, but until I see it myself." He broke off, jaw tight. She took his hand, squeezed. "We'll see it together. In about 20 minutes. The clinic was modern and welcoming, designed to put nervous parents at ease. Adrian held Elena's hand through check-in, through the wait, through the walk to the examination room. Dr. Morrison, a warm woman in her 50s, greeted them with a knowing smile. "Mr. Voss, good to finally meet you. Elena speaks highly of you." "Does she?" Adrian glanced at Elena with surprise. "She mentioned you're very protective, sends her crackers for morning sickness, restructured her meeting schedule." Dr. Morrison prepared the ultrasound equipment. "Those are the actions of a good partner." "I'm trying to be." Adrian's hand tightened on Elena's as she settled onto the examination table. "Okay, Elena, this gel is going to be cold." Dr. Morrison applied it with practiced efficiency. "And Mr. Voss, you might want to move closer. You'll want to see this." Adrian positioned himself beside Elena's head, his eyes fixed on the monitor. The moment the image appeared, a tiny form, unmistakably human, moving gently on the screen, he went absolutely still. "Oh," he breathed, "that's your baby." Dr. Morrison smiled. 20 weeks along. Let me check measurements." She moved the wand and the image shifted. "Heart rate is perfect. Growth is right on track. And do you want to know the gender?" Elena looked up at Adrian. "Do we?" "Yes." His voice was thick. "Yes. I want to know everything." Dr. Morrison adjusted the angle. "Congratulations, you're having a boy." A son. They were having a son. Elena watched Adrian's face transform, shock giving way to wonder, wonder giving way to a joy so pure it made her throat tight. His hand found hers, gripped like she was his anchor in a suddenly overwhelming world. "A boy," he whispered. "We're having a boy." "He's perfect," Dr. Morrison continued, oblivious to the magnitude of the moment. "All the measurements look excellent. Would you like pictures?" "Yes." Adrian finally tore his eyes from the screen. "Please, as many as you can print." 20 minutes later, they left the clinic with a folder full of ultrasound images and a future that suddenly felt achingly real. Adrian drove them back to his penthouse in silence, his hand never leaving Elena's. Once inside, he set the ultrasound photos carefully on the coffee table, then turned to Elena with an expression that took her breath away. "I need to say something." "Okay." "When I saw him on that screen, when I realized he's real, that in 4 months I'm going to be holding our son," Adrian's voice cracked. "Elena, I've never been so terrified and so grateful at the same time. Terrified I'll fail him, fail you, but grateful that somehow, despite everything, you're giving me this chance." Elena stepped into his space, her hands framing his face. "You're going to be an amazing father. You don't know that." "I do. Because I've watched you protect everyone you care about with everything you have. Because you turn grief into action and power into purpose. Because you're terrified of failing, which means you'll try harder than anyone." She rose on her toes, pressed her forehead to his. And because I love you, and I trust you, with our son, with my life, with everything. Adrian's breath caught. Elena, I love you, she repeated, the words easier the second time. I think I've been falling for a while now, but seeing you today, seeing how you looked at our baby on that screen, I'm sure now. I love you, Adrian Voss, all of you, the protective parts and the dangerous parts and the gentle parts. I love you. Adrian kissed her then, deep and desperate and filled with every emotion he couldn't put into words. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret saying that. I won't regret it. Elena's smile was radiant. This is what I choose. You, us, our son, our life, all of it. And standing there in the afternoon light, holding each other while ultrasound pictures of their son lay scattered on the table, they both believed it. Believed in the possibility of love born from chaos. Believed in building something lasting from the most unlikely beginning. Believed that maybe, just maybe, they were going to make it. The next 4 months passed like a dream Elena kept expecting to wake from. But this dream was real, achingly, impossibly real, and it only got better with each passing day. Adrian transformed one of the spare bedrooms in his penthouse into a nursery, consulting Elena on every detail. They spent weekends shopping for cribs and debating paint colors, arguing playfully about whether navy blue or soft gray was better for the walls. Elena won with a compromise, gray walls with navy accents, and Adrian conceded with a grace that made her love him even more. Work continued to challenge and fulfill her. The European partnership she'd negotiated generated record profits, and the board, even the skeptical members, began treating her as the strategic asset she'd always been. Marcus Reeves, once her harshest critic, became an unlikely ally after she saved one of his deals from collapse with a solution so elegant he'd actually apologized for doubting her competence. You're going to run this company someday, he'd said, and it hadn't sounded like flattery. It sounded like prophecy. But the best moments were the quiet ones. Adrian reading business reports with his hand on her growing belly, feeling their son kick and moving to follow the movement like it was the most important thing in the world. Elena falling asleep on his couch while he worked, waking to find herself carried to bed and tucked in carefully. Dinners where they talked about everything from philosophy to their son's future, building a shared vision of the life they were creating. Elena moved into the penthouse officially at 32 weeks, though she'd been spending most nights there anyway. Her apartment sat empty, a space she kept meaning to give up but hadn't quite released yet. Why are you holding on to it? Adrian asked one night as they assembled a changing table together. I don't know, safety net maybe? Elena handed him a screw. In case this doesn't work out. Adrian set down the screwdriver, turned to face her fully. Elena, look at me. She did, found his eyes serious and intent. This is going to work out, he said quietly. Not because everything will be perfect. It won't be. But because we both choose it every day, because we fight for it, because we love each other enough to do the hard work. His hand found her face, gentle and certain. But if you need the apartment to feel secure, keep it. I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. So take all the time you need to believe that. She gave up the apartment the next week. Because he was right, she wasn't going anywhere. This was home now. At 36 weeks, Elena's body began preparing for labor in ways that terrified and amazed her. Adrian became even more protective, insisting she work from home, keeping his phone on loud at all times in case she needed him. I'm pregnant, not dying, Elena protested one morning when he tried to carry her downstairs. You're carrying our son and your back hurts. Let me help. He lifted her anyway, ignoring her half-hearted struggles. Besides, I like taking care of you. You're going to spoil me. That's the plan. Adrian set her down gently on the couch, handed her the pregnancy pillow she'd become dependent on. I'll bring breakfast. Don't move. She didn't, partly because moving was uncomfortable, but mostly because she loved watching him bustle around the kitchen, preparing her favorite omelet with the same focused intensity he brought to million-dollar negotiations. Adrian? She called out. I'm glad it was you, that night, the champagne and the bad decisions, and everything that came after. She rubbed her swollen belly, felt their sun shift beneath her palm. I wouldn't change any of it. Adrian appeared in the doorway, spatula in hand, his expression soft. Neither would I. Best mistake I ever made. We should probably stop calling him a mistake. You're right. Best unexpected blessing I ever received. He returned to the stove. Better? Much better. Labor started on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 days before her due date. Elena was reviewing contracts in Adrian's home office when the first contraction hit, not painful yet, just a tightening that made her pause and take stock. She timed 3 more before calling out to Adrian, who was on a conference call in the next room. Adrian, I think it's time. The crash that followed suggested he'd knocked something over in his haste. He appeared in the doorway, phone abandoned, his face pale. Time, as in our son is coming. Probably not for several hours, but yes, time. Elena stood carefully, breathing through another contraction. We should probably head to the hospital. Right, hospital. I'll get the bag. It's packed, right? You packed it? Adrian was already moving, his usual composure completely shattered. Keys. I need keys. And your pillow. Do you need the pillow? Adrian. Elena caught his arm as he rushed past. Breathe. We have time. You're the one in labor. I should be telling you to breathe. And yet, you're the one hyperventilating. She smiled despite the discomfort. Come on, let's go have a baby. The drive to the hospital was tense, Adrian gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles while Elena counted contractions. They were still far apart, manageable, but his fear was palpable. Talk to me, Elena said, reaching for his hand. What are you thinking? That I'm terrified. His voice was raw. That I'm about to become responsible for another human being. That I could fail him, fail you. That... Adrian, stop. Elena squeezed his hand through another contraction. You're going to be amazing. We're going to be amazing, together. He pulled into the hospital entrance, got her checked in with the efficiency she'd expected, and stayed beside her through every examination, every contraction, every moment of the long afternoon that stretched into evening. Labor was brutal. Elena had known it would be, had prepared herself intellectually, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality. The pain came in waves that stole her breath and her composure, reducing her world to the space between contractions. Adrian never left her side. He held her hand through every contraction, let her squeeze until she was certain she'd broken bones, whispered encouragement when she was convinced she couldn't continue. You're the strongest person I've ever met, he murmured during a particularly intense contraction. You can do this. You're doing it. Just breathe with me. I can't. It's too much. You can. Look at me, Elena. Look at me. His eyes locked onto hers, steady and certain even when she felt like she was breaking apart. You're not alone. I'm right here. I'm not leaving. Ever. 17 hours after labor started, Dr. Morrison finally gave the word Elena had been waiting for. Okay, Elena. It's time to push. The next 30 minutes were a blur of pain and effort, and Adrian's voice in her ear, constant and unwavering. You're doing so well, so strong. Almost there, love. Almost there. And then, with a final push that took everything she had left, their son entered the world. The sound of his first cry was the most beautiful thing Elena had ever heard. Doctor. Morrison placed him on her chest, and Elena's hands came up instinctively to hold him, this tiny, perfect miracle, covered in vernix and crying indignantly. Oh, she breathed. Oh, he's perfect. He's everything. Adrian's voice was thick with tears she'd never thought she'd hear from him. His hand came up to touch their son's head with a gentleness that broke her heart. Elena, you did it. You brought him here. You're amazing. She looked up at Adrian and saw tears streaming down his face unashamedly. Saw wonder and love and absolute devotion in his expression. This powerful man who'd threatened mobsters and built empires was completely undone by the sight of their newborn son. Do you want to cut the cord? Dr. Morrison offered the scissors to Adrian. His hand shook as he took them, but his cut was steady. This final separation, making their son his own person, independent and real. Does he have a name? The nurse asked as she began cleaning the baby. Elena looked at Adrian. They'd discussed names for weeks, never quite agreeing, always finding reasons to wait. Alexander, Adrian said quietly, his eyes never leaving their son. After Elena's grandfather, Alexander James. If that's okay with you. Elena's throat closed up. She'd mentioned her grandfather exactly once, months ago, talking about the man who'd encouraged her dreams when no one else had, that Adrian remembered, that he'd chosen that name. It's perfect, she whispered. Alexander James Voss, our son. They took Alexander for his initial checkup while Elena delivered the placenta and Dr. Morrison stitched the small tear that had occurred. Adrian stayed by Elena's head, stroking her hair, whispering how proud he was of her. When the nurse brought Alexander back, cleaned and swaddled, she placed him in Adrian's arms. 8 pounds, 4 ounces, 21 inches. 10 fingers, 10 toes. Absolutely perfect. Adrian held his son with the careful reverence of someone holding something infinitely precious and infinitely fragile. He looked down at Alexander's tiny face, then up at Elena, and she saw every wall he'd ever built completely demolished. Thank you, he said, his voice breaking. Thank you for giving me this, for giving me him, for giving me a reason to be better than I ever thought I could be. Elena held out her arms, and Adrian placed Alexander gently in them before sitting on the edge of the hospital bed, his arm around her shoulders, the three of them forming a unit. We're a family now, Elena said softly, studying Alexander's perfect features. A real family. We've been a family for a while. Adrian pressed a kiss to her temple. But yes, now it's official. They spent the first night in the hospital learning to navigate parenthood, diaper changes and feeding attempts, and Alexander's preference for being held constantly. Adrian proved surprisingly adept at swaddling, and Elena discovered that breastfeeding was harder than any business negotiation she'd ever conducted. He's not latching right, she said, frustrated and exhausted. The nurse showed me, but I can't. Here. Adrian adjusted her hold on Alexander with gentle confidence. Try angling him this way. There, see? Alexander latched successfully, and Elena felt a rush of relief and accomplishment. How did you know how to do that? I've been watching videos for 3 months. Adrian settled beside them, his hand resting on Alexander's back. Wanted to be useful. You're more than useful, you're perfect. Elena leaned against him, suddenly overwhelmed. I don't know how I would have done this without you. You would have managed. You're capable of anything. Adrian's voice was soft. But I'm grateful you didn't have to, that I get to be here, that I get to be his father, and you're... He paused. Whatever you want me to be. Elena turned her head to look at him fully, saw vulnerability in his eyes. What do you want to be? Yours. In every way. Permanently. Adrian took a breath. Marry me. Elena's heart stopped. What? Marry me. Not because of Alexander, though I want him to have parents who are committed to each other. Not because of societal expectations or public relations or any practical reason. His hand came up to cup her face. Marry me because I love you. Because I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you every day. Because you're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I don't want to imagine a future where you're not my wife. Adrian, I know this isn't romantic. I know you're exhausted, and I don't have a ring, and we're in a hospital room. A small smile crossed his face. But I've learned that life doesn't wait for perfect moments. You create them. And this moment, with you and our son, feels perfect to me. Elena looked down at Alexander, peacefully nursing, then back at Adrian. This man who'd started as her boss became the father of her child and transformed into the love of her life somewhere along the way. Yes, she said simply. Yes, I'll marry you. Adrian's smile was brilliant and unguarded, all his usual control abandoned in favor of pure joy. He kissed her softly, carefully, mindful of the baby between them. I'll get you a ring, a proper proposal, whatever you want. I just want this, Elena gestured to their small family. Everything else is details. They brought Alexander home 2 days later to the penthouse that now felt like it had always been meant to house a family. Adrian carried the car seat with the precious cargo while Elena supervised nervously, convinced something would go wrong. Nothing did. Alexander settled into the nursery they'd prepared, into the routine they established, into the life they built around him with careful attention and overwhelming love. The first weeks were exhausting. Alexander needed to feed every 2 hours, which meant Elena barely slept. Adrian took over everything else, cooking, cleaning, answering work emails for both of them, with the same focused intensity he brought to everything. "You need to sleep," Elena protested one night when she found him doing laundry at 3 a.m. while Alexander dozed in the bassinet. "You have a company to run." "Robert is handling things. Veronica is managing press. Marcus is covering my meetings." Adrian folded a impossibly tiny onesie. "And you just gave birth. You need rest more than I do." "Adrian?" "Elena." He crossed to her, gentle but firm. "Let me do this. Let me take care of you while you take care of our son, please." She didn't have the energy to argue. And truthfully, she didn't want to. Having Adrian shoulder the burden while she recovered was a gift she hadn't known she needed. By 6 weeks postpartum, they'd found a rhythm. Elena began working part-time from home, taking video conferences while Alexander napped. Adrian restructured his schedule to be home more, delegating responsibilities he'd once insisted on handling personally. "I used to think the company would fall apart without me," he admitted one evening as they sat together on the couch, Alexander asleep on his chest. "Turns out it runs fine. Better, even, now that people have more autonomy." "So what does that mean for you?" "It means I get to be here more. With you. With him." Adrian stroked Alexander's back with infinite tenderness. "It means I get to choose what matters, instead of letting work choose for me." Elena leaned against his shoulder, feeling contentment settle into her bones. "I never thought I'd have this. A family, a partner, a life that feels like home." "Neither did I." Adrian pressed a kiss to her hair. "But here we are." At 3 months, Adrian surprised her with a ring, a stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds, elegant and unique. He proposed again, properly this time, in the nursery while Alexander watched from his crib with solemn eyes. "Elena Cruz, love of my life, mother of my son. Will you marry me?" She said yes through happy tears, let him slide the ring onto her finger, and kissed him while their son made cooing sounds of approval. They married quietly 6 months later in a small ceremony at the penthouse. Just family, Elena's parents and brother, Adrian's small circle of trusted friends, and Alexander as the best-dressed 6-month-old in attendance. Elena wore a simple cream dress that fit her post-baby body perfectly. Adrian wore a dark suit and an expression of such complete happiness that several guests got misty-eyed. The vows were traditional but heartfelt. When Adrian promised to love and cherish her, to stand beside her through whatever came, Elena believed every word, because he'd been proving it every day since that night in his office when he'd learned about the pregnancy. The kiss sealed a promise they'd been living for almost a year, to choose each other, to build together, to love fiercely and protect ruthlessly, and find joy in the unexpected. The reception was small and warm, full of laughter and good food and toasts that made everyone cry. Michael gave a speech about his sister's strength and how proud he was to see her so happy. Veronica told embarrassing stories about Adrian's early attempts to cook breakfast. Marcus joked that the company's stock price improved the day Adrian learned to delegate. But the best moment came late in the evening when Elena found Adrian on the balcony, holding Alexander and pointing out the city lights. "You know he can't understand any of this, right?" she said, sliding her arms around his waist from behind. "I know. But someday he will." Adrian glanced back at her, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "Someday I'll tell him how his mother saved me, how she took a mistake and turned it into the greatest blessing of my life, how she made me believe in second chances and real love and building something good from impossible beginnings." Elena's eyes filled with tears for the 100th time that day. "I love you so much." "I love you too." Adrian turned to face her fully, Alexander secure in one arm while the other came around her. "Thank you for saying yes. To everything. To staying when you could have run. To loving me when I didn't deserve it. To building this family with me. We deserve each other." Elena stood on her toes to kiss him softly. The good parts and the complicated parts. All of it. They stood there together as husband and wife, as partners in every sense, watching the city lights and feeling their son's steady breathing and knowing they'd found something most people spend lifetimes searching for. 3 years later, Elena stood in the same penthouse, now expanded to include a second nursery, and watched her husband chase their 3-year-old son through the living room while their 7-month-old daughter shrieked with laughter from her playpen. Alexander had Adrian's dark hair and Elena's warm brown eyes, and a personality that combined his father's determination with his mother's strategic thinking. He was brilliant and stubborn and absolutely convinced he could negotiate anything if he tried hard enough. Their daughter, Sophia, named for the sister Adrian had lost, had Elena's features and Adrian's intense gaze, and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. Life was chaotic and beautiful, and nothing like Elena had planned. She was now Executive VP, on track to become CEO within 5 years. Adrian had transitioned Mercer Holdings away from its gray area operations entirely, transforming it into a legitimate empire that helped build communities instead of exploiting them. Together, they'd established a foundation in Sophia's name that supported women leaving dangerous situations, providing resources and protection and second chances. The threats were gone. Dmitry Volkov had died in Miami 2 years ago, a genuine heart attack, verified by multiple sources, though Adrian's enemies still whispered that he'd somehow orchestrated it. Elena didn't ask. Some things were better left unexamined. What mattered was that her family was safe. Her children would grow up without fear. Her husband had transformed from the dangerous man she'd once been terrified of into a devoted father who sang lullabies in 3 languages and built elaborate block towers just to watch them be knocked down. "Mommy!" Alexander crashed into her legs, breathless and giggling. "Daddy says we can have ice cream if you say yes." "Does he now?" Elena looked over her son's head to where Adrian stood, holding Sophia, a sheepish expression on his face. "I may have promised something I don't have authority to deliver," he admitted. "You're the CEO of a major corporation, but you can't authorize ice cream? You're scarier than any board of directors." Adrian crossed to her, Sophia reaching for Elena with chubby hands. "But also more beautiful and smarter and—" "Yes, you can have ice cream," Elena interrupted, laughing. "But small portions. It's almost bedtime." Alexander cheered and raced toward the kitchen. Adrian followed more slowly, Sophia content in his arms, his free hand reaching for Elena. They stood together in the doorway watching their son enthusiastically scoop ice cream while keeping up a running commentary about his day. "Do you ever think about how this started?" Elena asked softly. "How unlikely all of this was." "Every day." Adrian pressed a kiss to her temple. "And every day, I'm grateful for that champagne, for that night, for the pregnancy that forced us both to stop being cowards. We weren't cowards. We were careful. We were terrified of wanting something real." His arm tightened around her. "But we found it anyway, built it from scratch. And Elena? I would choose you again, every time, in every version of this story." His voice was quiet but certain. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me, both of you, all of you." Sophia grabbed a handful of Elena's hair, tugging with the demanding certainty of a baby who knew she was loved beyond measure. Alexander called out for his father to come help with the ice cream scooper. And Elena looked at this life they'd built, messy and loud and absolutely perfect, and felt her heart overflow. "I choose you too," she said, meeting Adrian's eyes. "Every day, forever." He kissed her then, soft and sweet, a promise renewed in the middle of their chaotic kitchen, with ice cream melting and children demanding attention and everything exactly as imperfect and wonderful as real life should be. That night, after ice cream was consumed and children were bathed and tucked into beds with stories and kisses, Elena and Adrian collapsed onto their own bed, exhausted and content. 3 years married, Adrian mused, pulling Elena close. Feels like longer, in the best way. Because we packed a lot of living into these years. Elena traced patterns on his chest. 2 kids, company transformations, a foundation, and more happiness than I knew existed. Any regrets? Not one. She propped herself up to look at him. You? Just that I didn't figure out I loved you sooner. Could have had more years of this. We have the rest of our lives. Elena settled back against him. That's enough. Adrian's arms came around her, secure and warm and home. More than enough. It's everything. They fell asleep tangled together, the monitors on both nightstands transmitting the peaceful sounds of sleeping children, the city lights casting soft shadows through the windows. And somewhere in the space between sleeping and waking, Elena thought about the woman she'd been 3.5 years ago, the one who'd tried to resign, who'd planned to disappear, who'd been so terrified of the future she couldn't see the gift it held. That woman would never have believed this ending, would never have thought that the night that seemed like her biggest mistake would become the beginning of her greatest joy. But life, Elena had learned, had a way of turning fear into courage, chaos into family, and impossible beginnings into lasting love. All you had to do was be brave enough to stay, to fight, to choose the person standing beside you, even when everything seemed complicated and scary and doomed to fail. Because sometimes the best things in life started as mistakes, as one night of champagne and bad decisions, as a pregnancy that forced two people to stop hiding from what they really wanted. And sometimes, if you were very lucky and very brave, those mistakes transformed into something beautiful, something lasting, something worth every moment of fear it took to build. Elena Cruz had found that something, had built it with Adrian Voss, one choice at a time, one day at a time, one moment of trust at a time. And she would spend the rest of her life grateful for the night everything changed, the night she stopped running and started living, the night that gave her a family, a love, and a future beyond anything she'd ever dared to dream. In the darkness of their bedroom, with her husband's heartbeat steady beneath her ear and her children sleeping peacefully down the hall, Elena smiled. This was what happily ever after looked like. Not perfect, not easy, but real, honest, hard-won, and deeply cherished. And it was more than enough. It was everything.